committee hearing on Boston's relationship with ICE. And how is she and her team bracing for potential federal cuts and for yet another candidate for mayor?
I'm Marjorie Yegan. We'll also ask her about everything from public housing, safety to bike lanes and bus lanes. And what do you know? As Jim mentioned, she might face another deep-pocketed challenger in November's mayoral race. Have you your own question for Mayor Wu? Call us, text us, or come on down to the Boston Public Library and ask her in person. All that ahead on Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Stock markets are sinking again on Wall Street. The Dow was down 600 points. Last hour, President Trump said he'd double tariffs on imports of Canadian aluminum and steel tomorrow. He says these will rise to 50%. Trump is responding to a move by the leader of the Canadian province of Ontario. The leader says he's imposing a 25% fee on Ontario's energy exports to Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. The angry exchanges over tariffs come as the House of Representatives gets ready to vote on a government spending bill. House Speaker Mike Johnson is confident Republicans will pass the measure, even though they can only afford to lose one vote.
We'll have the votes. We're going to pass the CR. We can do it on our own. But what I'm saying is Democrats ought to do the responsible thing, follow their own advice in every previous scenario, and keep the government open.
Congress has until late Friday night to pass a spending bill, or the government will partially shut down. The Department of Veterans Affairs has cut several thousand jobs and plans to soon cut 80,000 more. NPR's Katia Riddle reports VA officials are also reevaluating millions of dollars spent on agency research.
Leadership at the VA said they are taking 90 days to evaluate research positions. Rashi Romanoff works for a nonprofit, the National Association of Veterans Research and Education Foundations. She says millions of dollars of research into things like mental health care and suicide prevention are at stake.
When it comes to new drugs or new interventions or new health services, the VA is actually a really rich ecosystem for thinking about research and healthcare innovation.
The VA says it will not eliminate positions that are, quote, mission critical. Katie Riddle, NPR News.
Meanwhile, a federal judge has ruled the Trump administration cannot refuse to spend money Congress has decided to spend on foreign aid. But the same judge declined to order the Trump administration to restore thousands of foreign aid contracts that have been canceled. President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, is expected to arrive in Qatar today. This is for a round of ceasefire talks aiming to end the war in Gaza. It's the highest-level round of negotiations since the first phase of the ceasefire ended March 1st. NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi has more.
Israel said that it has sent a delegation to Doha to try to move forward with ceasefire negotiations. The delegation is meant to meet with mediators, including U.S. Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff. Israel wants Hamas to accept an extension of the first phase of a ceasefire deal that would see half the hostages held in Gaza freed. Hamas says it wants to begin second phase talks that would see a permanent end to the war and a withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. To pressure Hamas to accept the extension, Israel has cut off all aid, including food and medical supplies, into the Strip. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
On Wall Street, the Dow is down about 600 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. As CVS Health prepares to close hundreds of stores this year, it's also planning to open at least a dozen mini stores throughout the U.S. that are focused on medication rather than retail. Officials at the Rhode Island-based company say the new stores will be less than 5,000 square feet and will be placed in communities where residents may already shop at Walmart or dollar stores but don't have a nearby place to fill their prescriptions and get vaccines. In short, you'll be able to get items like over-the-counter medications and first aid products, but not items like laundry detergent, greeting cards, snacks, cosmetics, office supplies. No word yet on where the mini CVS stores will be located. And it was 5 years ago that the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. Organization cited alarming levels of spread and severity and alarming levels of inaction. At the time, 4,291 people had died from the disease. Today, more than 7 million have lost their lives. Back then, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker had declared a state of emergency in Massachusetts.
This declaration will give our administration more flexibility. Our goal needs to be to significantly increase efforts to mitigate the spread of this disease now.
70 of the presumptive cases were tracked to a Biogen business conference at Marriott Long Wharf in Boston. A later study found that conference could have been connected to as many as 300,000 cases worldwide. 53 degrees in Boston. We're heading to the low 60s today. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Kauffman Foundation, providing access to opportunities that help people achieve financial stability, upward mobility, and economic prosperity regardless of race, gender, or geography. Kauffman.org.
It's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan, and you're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com. Thank you /GBH News. That is. We're going to be back here tomorrow at the library for like a doubleheader. We have Ask the Governor and Ask the General Manager of the MBTA. The Governor's going to be here from 11 to 12, and the General Manager of the T, Phil Eng, is going to be here at 1 o'clock. They'll take our questions at yours. And one more programming on Friday. We're going to be in Brighton broadcasting, but not here because the library is closed. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Marjorie. And the mayor is actually walking into the room. She had a meeting in the building. I believe child in tow. As a matter of fact, the answer is right. If you have a question, it's probably for the baby. I don't know. If you have a question for the mayor or Mira, you can ask the kid a question too. You can call or text us at 877-301-8970. Rather raucous applause here today at the library. Yeah. And if you're at the library and you would like to ask a question of the mayor, our colleagues Hannah and Tamsin are sitting right there. And by the way, I have to say, I don't think we've ever had a standing ovation for an elected official or a candidate in the, 26 years we've been doing this show, and maybe a decade at the library, and we just had one. If you're not watching on streaming, the mayor is preparing to feed her kid, and so she'll join us in just a couple of seconds.
We can chat for a couple of seconds about how's the stock market doing today, Jim?
Well, it's only down 500 points. So,
good. That's good.
As I was wrong yesterday when I said your retirement fund would be gone by 2. It will be gone by 2 today, but it will not be. And by the way, if people are not paying attention, Trump, who you would assume would back off the tariffs and the recession talk, has announced this morning that he's doubling the tariffs on aluminum and steel from Canada from 25 to 50% beginning tomorrow. So that should be really, really good.
And by the way, they're going to be charging, the Canadians are going to be charging a lot more for electricity.
Energy,
it comes from Canada, which is going to affect New York State big time and a couple of states in the Midwest. So that's going to raise the average cost of energy and the electricity bills in those states by like $100. So that'll make people happy too.
So I think we can say, hello, Mayor.
Hello,
How are
Mayor.
You? Nice to see you.
Well,
how are you?
Hello, Mira.
And Mayor, I think perhaps the standing ovation might have had something to do with what happened last week in Washington, D.C. So how'd you feel about it?
Well, it's nice to see everyone. It's great to be back home. Sorry, I ran straight up from the cabinet meeting downstairs, and we didn't get to feed before, so now I'm going to do this so we can get a full uninterrupted hour.
I know.
The level of logistics that are involved.
I love that. That's very clever, that pink apron thing. It works very well. It works very well. So how was that? How'd you feel during it? It was high stakes. It must be a little nerve-wracking.
It was a long day, I'll say that. And it had just been hyped up so much beforehand, right? There was a movie trailer for a congressional hearing and lots of continued threats and targeting of Boston and our police commissioner and various things that we believe are really important to including everyone in our community. So I was proud to go down there and raise my right hand, swear to tell the truth, and then talk about Boston as the best city in the world. We're the safest major city. We have so much going on, and it's because we are a community that includes everyone.
Do you worry that you, and I think the consensus is you won the battle, do you worry that you lose the war? The retribution desire on the part of congressional Republicans, and clearly Trump himself around these issues, is immense. We already saw the Small Business Administration office will be closing at some point in Boston. He's also talking about cutting other funds. There's some legal issues we'll discuss with you and with Kyle Rose from the Civil Liberties Union at noon. But are you worried about them coming after lots of federal funding sources here?
I mean, this is extremely serious, and as much as it can seem like a sort of show or production when you're watching it, these are, Congress has power, and people who are in the federal government have real power to enact consequences, whether that's on federal funding or whether that is to follow through with some of the threats around prosecution of individual people or the referral to the Department of Justice. So we are going to continue to provide the information that the committee was seeking. A lot of this was not just the presence and testifying at the hearing, but documents that they've requested about city policies and different things like that we're continuing to follow up on. And, it does feel like much of this is designed to silence people, right? To say, if you just sort of keep your mouth shut or quietly change your policies, then if you do what we want and satisfy the political wins right now, then maybe you'll have a chance of surviving better. But that's not an alternative that, one, is acceptable for our community members, and two, that is how you can live for 4 years. So we follow the laws in Boston. We're very clear about that. And we tell the truth about what we do, why we do it, and who we do it for.
But is there a piece of you, I mean, obviously your primary obligation, you'd say it, you don't need me to say it, is to the people of Boston. We were talking to Ilan Stavins, professor from Amherst College yesterday, about how Claudia Sheinbaum, the new president of Mexico, has totally bamboozled Trump, in part by playing to him and being nice. And while some find that to be terribly offensive, she's getting what she wants, no tariffs for at least a month. So are you convinced your path is the right path?
We have to tell the truth. That's, at the end of the day, I still believe that matters, and that's what's important in representing our communities.
It's just a couple of quick follow-ups on Washington. You're taking a little flack for the lawyers. I think it was $950,000.
No,
it was
600. Excuse me, $950 an hour, $650,000.
Now you're sounding like the Republicans.
That's right. Sorry, I'm just confused. But $650 an hour, $950. So were they worth it?
So again, it is money that I very, very much wish we did not have to spend at all, and time from my staff and my team that could have gone to much better, much more important things. But the stakes are high, and there's again, we're still continuing with the document production that has been formally requested, and when there's threats to put me in jail, to take away funding, I needed to make sure that I was doing everything possible to represent our city well, to represent the policies with complete accuracy, and having legal representation was a necessary part of that.
Can I just give the number before you ask another question? Our number, if you want to speak directly to the mayor, is 877-301-8970. You can call her or text her at that number.
And you wore ashes on your forehead, which I didn't even know you were Catholic, but Catholics get ashes on Ash Wednesday. But did you think about that at all, what that meant? And what about the plans for the baby? So ashes first.
Oh my goodness.
And then the baby.
It was a full heavy day. I've gotten ashes every Ash Wednesday. Usually at City Hall, we invite a local priest to come and provide that for anyone in City Hall who is interested, just because everyone's already at the workday. And so I'm very grateful that we'd reached out to the Archdiocese, and they helped connect us to a church right nearby the hotel, and we were able to go there early before the hearing, and then sort of have my sort of usual connection to faith and this moment of thinking about our place in the world and our place as, just small, humble human beings who eventually will go back to ashes and dust. And that was a little, it was a little bit of a, maybe that's why I felt so calm as well, that heading into this, there are more important things in terms of understanding our humanity, our connection to each other, and just doing right and being good people in the world, trying to take care of others and be part of a community. About the baby, so we had actually, the reason why it ended up being on Ash Wednesday is because we had asked the committee for more time. Initially,
Right.
they had called us in for several weeks earlier, and at that point I was still not healed up and had my doctor's note effectively, and so I'm very grateful that they gave us more time for me to heal. But she's still nursing, as you can see, and needs to eat at this point, maybe hour and a half, 2-ish hours. And we had arranged for breaks with the committee so that we would all break and everyone would, take a breath, and I would get to go run and feed her. But initially, there are 47 members of the committee. Each person gets 5 minutes to ask questions or use their time however they would like. And then I think it was almost 10 additional congresspeople who weren't on the committee got special permission to join for the hearing so that they could ask 5 minutes. So the committee chair was starting to see a lot of people wanting to make it through. And then at one point early on, he said, now we're going to excuse Mayor Wu because she needs to go take care of the baby. And I had, luckily, my husband Connor was in touch with the lawyers who were sitting behind me, and I kind of looked back and he said, no, she's fine, she's still sleeping, it's okay. And I was able to say, not only I'm going to keep going because the baby's okay right now, but also this is not what we had agreed on, which was for everyone to take a break so that I wouldn't have to go to a back room by myself and miss everything that was happening. But really, Connor was with her walking all through the Capitol, taking care of her. So he's really the hero of that day and making sure that I could sit there and do my job.
Just one last question about the hearing. I want to play your comment responding Tom Homan. He's the border czar, so to speak, who has decided that bullying you in Boston is a good way to make a living. Here is what you said about Homan's comment that he was bringing hell to Boston.
Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath, and let's ask him some questions. I am here to make sure that the city of Boston is safe. Others may want to bring hell. We are here to bring peace to cities everywhere.
Do you have any idea what his plans are in terms of coming to Boston? Has your office been contacted, or how you're preparing for whatever it is that he's threatening?
No, ICE generally has not been in contact with the Boston Police to give any kind of notice about different things that they're doing. As far as we can tell, they are really still functionally sticking to the types of actions that happened under the Biden administration as well. And again, something I said over and over again at the hearing is it's a false statement that Boston police aren't cooperating on criminal issues. We do that with any federal agency, any state agency. Whenever there's a criminal warrant, we work together, and that is part of the daily work to keep Boston as safe as it is. But in terms of mass deportation, our officers will not play a role in that. And we have not gotten any advance notice from the Trump administration about what they'll do.
Okay, Mayor Wu's with us. I'm sorry, for the hour.
Yep, she's here till noontime, but meanwhile, we take some calls here at 877-301-8970. Wayne calling from somewhere in Massachusetts. Hi, Wayne.
Hello, Wayne.
Hey, Marjorie and Jim. Mayor Wu, they wanted to describe what you sounded like in Washington, D.C. Only thing is that you was a gangster. You held it down. That's what you're supposed to do.
Thank you,
shut
Wayne.
it down. Tell them to shut up, sit down. And the other thing was this. When you said we are Boston in 4 or 5 different languages, I got choked up. I'm not a young man, but I was choked up. And I appreciate all you did.
Wayne.
All you did all.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
You guys are doing a wonderful job, Jim and Marjorie.
Thanks, Wayne.
And you too, Mayor Wu.
Thank
we
you.
are Boston.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you,
so
Wayne.
much,
Wayne,
Appreciate it, Wayne.
thank you for the call. We have several texts that also appreciated that you spoke about being from Boston. We are Boston in the 4 different languages. They really appreciated that.
I think in fairness, by the way, if anybody else wants to comment on the testimony, it probably should be on the merits. If there's an issue that the mayor addressed or was asked about, but I think calls like Wayne's, while much appreciated, will probably pass by for the rest of the show so we can get to content. Let's go to Josh in Gloucester. You're on with the mayor of the city of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hi, Josh.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me on the call. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
Mayor, just thank you so much for everything you've done. I was a huge fan of your speech. I watched it choked up twice, and just amazing. So thank you. For me, and Jim and Margie have done a great job explaining exactly what the laws are. So for me, it's pretty cut and dry of why you're not doing what the Republicans want you to do. But I don't want to give them a playbook on this. But am I incorrect in assuming that if the Republicans want you to do what they want you to do, Congress would have to pass a separate law to circumvent what is on the books? Am I misunderstanding what the procedural aspects of this are?
Well, I think there's actually, again, not that I'm condoning this, but I think there are a couple pathways in addition to the federal laws. One, which is a matter of kind of effectiveness of an agency, depending on what your goals are for it. The reality is that, again, any agency that gets a judicial warrant, a criminal warrant signed by a judge that has verified probable cause and has gone through that process in the legal system, the Boston police must enforce that. And we do every day, whether that's a warrant that comes from out of state for someone who might be wanted for a serious crime elsewhere, or even outside the country. There have been examples where Boston police have collaborated in that way to bring justice to a particular family abroad. ICE is choosing not to go and get these criminal warrants. And what they'll say is, so-and-so was extremely dangerous and a threat to the community, and yet they're not taking the action that reflects what they should be doing if they believe that to be true. They're waiting until afterwards and then saying, we had to arrest this person separately because, and usually it's not Boston police, because frankly, the police department isn't holding people in custody for very long in most cases. We are just Boston police will usually only have someone in custody after an arrest, and either to the court system where they will be arraigned, or if a bail commissioner arrives and then makes the determination that that person is eligible for bail and they make bail. But none of that is within Boston Police's discretion to decide. It's either the courts or a bail that does that. But if there were a warrant, they would do that. The other option is state law, right? Because right now we are governed by not only the Boston Trust Act, but Lunn, which is a Supreme Judicial Court decision. So theoretically, if the Massachusetts legislature wanted to change the law, that would have an impact as well.
Josh, thank you much for the call. Mayor, a community activist declared that he was running for mayor yesterday. Shirley Leung, who will be with us at 1 o'clock, had a piece saying that Tom O'Brien, a major developer in the city, worked for Tom Menino for some time, is considering running. And your campaign issued the following statement: "It's clear some developers are willing to do whatever it takes to buy this office. Josh Kraft apparently is not what they expected, so now they're looking for a new option." What's wrong with Tom O'Brien? I mean, he's a major developer in the city. He agrees with you on some issues, including your attempt to do this property tax shift, apparently. He has a lot of city experience. What's wrong with Tom O'Brien?
I'm going to leave others to make their own decisions about what they will do, and put forward a case should they decide to jump in about why this role and why this moment. I'm very clear about that for me and for the work that we've been doing in the city, which is that we do need to make sure that Boston continues to be an example for the rest of the country and the world about how to move forward and how to still have progress. And it is a reality that there are developers and those within the real estate community who very much want to see us loosening affordability requirements that we have said are important in order for Boston to be a city for everyone. and giving tax breaks or other usage of public funds to build more profit for those who are struggling right now. It is a difficult time in the economy for developers. Interest rates have remained at a certain level that are hard, with the tariffs, with all the other actions that are outside a city government's control. There have been some who believe that the public sector should subsidize when this group of profit sort of focused businesses is underwater. And that has not been my philosophy. And we have done everything that we can to boost housing production, to speed up processes, to use city-owned land, and to work with developers who are interested in building great affordable homes for our community. We've created more affordable housing than any time in the last 25 years under our administration. But giveaways and using those dollars in a way that I don't believe are the most needed use right now in order to ensure that developers continue to have profits, that is not my motivation for being in this office.
We're talking to Mayor Wu.
Let's go to Alex in East Boston. Thank you for calling, Alex.
Hello, Alex.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hey. Nice to talk to you, Mayor Wu and Mira. Obviously, we're very proud of what you did in D.C., but onto my topic. So the trash issue in D.C. is especially pretty bad. It sometimes causes storm drains and causes flooding on Brick Street, for example. Pretty heavy flooding there recently. And Water Street has a ton of small trash collecting. And we're a very windy neighborhood because of the geography. And sometimes you see trash blow into people's faces, collect in corners. And I even once saw a roof shingle blow over a small child. I've done cleanups with friends along the Chelsea Creek, and we'd leave with like 4 trash bags of things, mostly straws and cups. Then we go back a few days later, and there'd be even more trash because it all blows over from Eastie.
Alex, what's your question?
So the question is, what can we do to kind of make this better? Extend street cleaning to begin sooner than April, or enforce the plastic bag ban that restaurants are still using and not charging for? Anything else we can do? I know trash receptacles are a tough topic, but is that on the books or anything like that?
We got it. Alex, thank you for your call. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. A few quick things. So first of all, I'm flagging Border Street. We have started some early street cleaning, so I will check to see where the capacity is, and we definitely have heard this from a couple different neighborhoods, so I'll see if we can make sure that we're directing some of that over to East Boston in that area. Councilor Khalil Zapata has been really focused on this issue as well. So I know in partnership with her office, we've made plans to have more trash bins in different parts of the neighborhood, trash receptacles that are kind of the large ones on the street. And that hopefully will help just for the casual, person walking by who has something that they need to throw away where it doesn't end up on the ground. Also for residential trash, we just need to move towards containerization. So I can see if it's an issue, if there's people who are if the neighbors are tending to just leave bags out instead of having the large bins. Sometimes that's a matter of not having a place to store the bins. Sometimes it's not having the bins. And depending on what it is, we might be able to support there. The plastic bag ban, interestingly, I was part of authoring this ordinance a number of years ago. There's actually an exception for restaurants. And so we could think about and start to have some of the conversations with the local small businesses, but it was grocery stores and other types of businesses, restaurants, and uses where you're putting food in it was actually a carve out there, but it might be time to see how people are feeling about it now that that's been in place for a number of years, and the implementation has gone pretty smoothly otherwise. So it's a good flag.
Alex, thanks for the call.
Mayor, you just spoke about not wanting to, bail out developers if they get in trouble. But the Globe had a story, I think it was today actually, about this one Lincoln Street, sort of a big landmark in downtown Boston, had been valued at $1 billion, 36-story office building, going on auction because they are so in debt down there. And it talked about this as a possible precursor for what's going to happen to other office buildings in downtown Boston, because from the pandemic they have been vacant, and that does dramatically impact, as you know, the property tax collection of the city. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a huge issue, and I want to get into just a tiny bit of the weeds just so everyone understands the real implications on the tax base. But at a high level, this is serious, and we have been working really hard to try to get at the underlying issues here, which is one, there just is not as much demand for office in today's economy when there is so much remote work, and therefore we do need to continue supporting conversions where it's possible, where the property owners want to tap into a tax incentive that we believe is one that is merited to help vacant office buildings convert to residential housing. And there's already 700 units that are in the pipeline from our program on downtown office to residential conversions. We're thinking about expanding that to some other specific types of housing uses as well, and just to keep that going, because we need foot traffic downtown. It's not going to come from the 9 to 5 office crowd in the same way that it did before, Monday through Friday. It can come from residents who will now live there 24 hours a day. It can come from more large events like the gigantic street snowboarding extravaganza that we held on City Hall Plaza that had a huge crowd, and public art installations and other ways that we're just trying to ensure that downtown remains a destination, even if it's not necessarily the same level of 9 to 5 work hub. However, there's a difference between the commercial property owners absorbing a loss from having overpaid or having paid at a time when the market was very hot compared to where it is now. There's a difference between that and the valuation on the city's books that defines how much they pay in taxes. So in many cases, what they had originally bought that building from, and therefore what they were sort of valuing that building from according to the market, is much higher than the city's assessed value on the books. And therefore, when the value then is, when they sell for a lower value, the real question is, how much lower is that? Or is that even lower than what the assessed value is? Whenever the assessed value is higher than what the market value is, of course we get appeals because people want to have their taxes lower and match what they believe the lower rate should be. But whenever the assessed value is higher, whenever the market value is higher than the assessed value, we don't get people coming and appealing and saying, actually, I'd like to pay more in taxes because I believe the building is worth more than you say it is. So there's sometimes those mismatches, and it's not a quick jump to say because something is selling for lower than it did last time, it will immediately be a hit in taxes. We're watching this very carefully, and maybe we should have the conversation internally about how we do change our assessed values to match the market more often. But in most cases, there's actually a little bit of a cushion there, but it is a serious issue and one that we have to keep pushing on.
Mayor, we've got to take a break. Before we do, two quick street things. Alex was talking about streets, and I think it was East Boston. Bike lanes. Last time you were here, you talked about doing a review of all the street infrastructure. Since that happened, there was a story in the Globe about, what are those things called? Bollards?
Flex posts,
yeah,
yep.
The flex posts being removed, at least on next to certain bike lanes. And the Globe reporter, and my apologies to him or her, I forgot who wrote the story, said they stayed on the scene. And without those protective things there were cars or trucks driving into the bike lane, making it quite nervous. And virtually all in the cycling community said they had absolutely no notice from the city that this was happening. What's up with this?
Yeah, so a couple updates from last time on this. One, since we're here, I will mention that the changes we shared that are coming to Boylston Street in terms of removing the dedicated bus lane that frankly has not been used as a dedicated bus lane for various reasons. That is in process, and we are going to, you'll see some of the milling of the street just to change the lane markings as soon as this weekend, and that then the repaving will happen probably within 2 weeks after that. So this will all be done, redone, beautiful, smooth before the marathon. So that is one matter. On the bike lanes and the larger infrastructure, I think as I shared, this is not, to be clear, this is not about eliminating bike lanes. This is not about saying we don't need bike lanes. We very much need safe, protected infrastructure for more people to use our streets in every way, not just driving, but walking, cycling, getting around however we can, because traffic is a huge issue. And as public transportation becomes more reliable, that is a big piece of it. But we also need to recognize that the more jobs we're adding, the more housing we're adding, our streets are only so big, and we have to have safe ways for people to get around. What is changing, though, is that for the last 15 years, it's basically been an experiment in how we can quickly and temporarily prioritize safety of cyclists and pedestrians, even if it ends up not looking how it should or not feeling like the roadways are as usable for everyone else as well. I truly believe that there's a way to balance the needs of delivery trucks who have to serve our small businesses, of pedestrians, of drivers, and of cyclists, and that we have to constantly be in an iterative conversation to get that right. Now, flex posts are my personal pet peeve. The separation is important, and they are definitely the fastest, cheapest way to create a bike lane that feels like you're not going to put your life at risk. But at some point, when a flex post has been there defining a bike lane for a year now, 3 years now, what was meant initially as a temporary experiment to say, does this work, right? What is called tactical urbanism, do it first, see if it works, see if you need to change it because it's undoable. At some point, we have to decide, is it working or not? And if it's working, let's get rid of the flex posts. Let's make it into permanent concrete that is a separated curb, or elevate it in pathways that look like the Southwest Corridor or other places that feel even safer. Because what we see around the city now are places that are supposed to be bike lanes that are separated with posts, and instead you just get gross looking crumpled plastic all over the place because cars and trucks are running over the posts, they're driving through the lane, they're parking in the lane anyway, and without some combination of more permanent infrastructure, which will cost more and require more resource planning, we just can't stay stuck in this sort of temporary period.
But now there's nothing, right? Isn't that worse than having at least a temporary barrier?
Well, some of these are for routine maintenance. The Mass Ave one, I need to get a handle on exactly what the situation there is with the next steps. But the goal is where it's working, keep it, move it into something that is permanent, that is beautiful, that is fitting of how all of our street users should feel when they're on the street, and move away from this sort of
But you do agree
plastic.
that if you're moving the temporary, you should immediately be replacing it with a permanent if that's the goal, rather than leaving an interim period where there's no protection, right? Or no?
Well, everything comes down to the specific corridor, so I don't want to talk about this particular place. But I will say that, again, with this bus lane, for example, it wasn't being used as a bus lane at the end of the day. And so there's real analysis and evaluation that has to be done on, is it even working how it was intended?
Can you spend 30 seconds before the break on, say, Patrick's Day safety precautions?
Yes, and there will be a fuller conversation and press conference, I think, tomorrow on this with all our law enforcement partners. But this is one of the biggest events of the year. We can get upwards of 1 million people coming to Boston for this. It is a wonderful time. It is a celebration of our immigrant heritage as well, and not just a drinking fest. So that is important. And it is the largest event that runs through a residential neighborhood as well. So that's important to keep in mind. I would just ask everyone, you are welcome. We're excited to celebrate with you. We're thankful that you're supporting our small businesses coming here. But just remember, that's someone's yard and that's someone's house. And we just ask that you keep that in mind and take care of that too.
Okay, this is the mayor of Boston. You've been hearing Michelle Wu. She's going to be with us till the top of the hour. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, the number 877-301-8970.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, a modern take on Vivaldi's The Four Seasons makes its world premiere in Boston as a Baroque opera set in the near future. Titled The Seasons, it was co-created by countertenor Anthony Roth Costanzo and award-winning playwright Sarah Rule. And it has much to say about climate change and living amid uncertainty. They join me for a preview, that and more, today at 2 on The Culture Show, 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Addison Gallery of American Art, presenting June Leaf, Shooting from the Heart, a retrospective spanning the dynamic artist's entire career, with an opening reception March 29th, on view through July 31st. AddisonGallery.org. And the Simmons Leadership Conference, a one-day event featuring keynote speakers including Brooke Shields, Cint Marshall, and Jessica O. Matthews. Thursday, March 20th, in person in Boston and online. InclusiveLeadership.com.
The world takes you outside your borders and connects you with the most important events happening all across this big blue marble.
We introduce you to memorable people whose stories will stay with you for a lifetime. I'm Marco Werman.
And I'm Carolyn Beeler. Global news and inspiring voices that will keep you on top of the world.
Listen each weekday.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And The Huntington, presenting The Triumph of Love, Marivu's beloved classic where mistaken identities, hilarious complications, and deeply felt desires collide. On stage March 7th through April 6th. HuntingtonTheater.org. And Lawrence General Hospital, now united with Holy Family Hospital to help build a robust regional healthcare system defined by a shared commitment to patient-centered care and medical excellence. More at lawrencegeneral.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're at the library again tomorrow for Ask the Governor from 11 to 12. And at 1 o'clock, we have an Ask the GM of the T, Philip Ang. By the way, a little bit later in the show, I just saw Dr. Don Berwick, who ran Medicare and Medicaid for Barack Obama. Will talk to us about the threats to Medicaid, mass health, etc. But for now, we're speaking to the mayor of the city of Boston for the rest of the hour and taking your questions at 877-301-8970.
Matt in Jamaica Plain, you're on with the mayor. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Matt.
Hello. Hello. So good to speak with you all. Mayor Wu, such a pleasure to speak with you. I am a huge supporter. I remain a supporter of yours. And part of what makes me so excited about your administration is your commitment to making Boston the safest big city in America. And I feel like you've made tremendous strides around a lot of different areas with regard to safety, in particular transportation, as families are moving about the city, you know, improving transportation, improving safety, improving accessibility. And that's why I've been so confused about the recent review of the infrastructure projects, and in particular, the recent removal of the flex posts, especially on Mass Ave and Arlington Street. And I'm such a big supporter of yours, and I believe in you, and I've just been really confused and a little disappointed, and I was curious what you thought.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, as I've been saying, this is not about eliminating the need for bike lanes or recognition that we don't need to find every possible way to build multimodal streets. We just have to move into a more permanent and appropriate way of thinking about this infrastructure. I think the goal of go as fast as possible, put up as many posts as possible, and then leave them there even if they're not necessarily working or causing other unintended consequences, and then move on to the next corridor. We just have to be more reflective in how we're making actual plans for permanent infrastructure that I think will be what Boston needs for the long run. So we're in the middle of this. It's ongoing. We're going to be working with community members to develop some clear accountability and principles around how decisions will be made in the future about new infrastructure and roadways. But there's been tremendous feedback about not only the need for balance across the different uses, and it matters when small businesses say that they can't keep their doors open because all of their parking for employees is gone, and we didn't really worry about that too much and just wanted to move as quickly as possible. And it matters when residents from the disability community say, I don't have a way to get to the curb now that feels safe from where I'm exiting my vehicle. And again, this is about achieving a shared usage of our streets and certainly protecting the safety and lives of the most vulnerable street users, which are usually our cyclists and pedestrians. That is key. And I believe we can do more on top of that.
Matt, thanks for the call. Mayor, last month you were here, we talked about Michael Flaherty, former city councilor, who was ousted as a lawyer at the counsel at the Water and Sewer Commission and got a significant payout. And when I asked you about it, you said, I was not involved. They make their own personnel decision. Since we saw you, the Globe and the Herald have been reporting on staff there. The executive director has 2 sisters-in-law on the payroll. He used to have a nephew on the payroll. The attorneys of color, according to Globe reporting, were moved aside so that Bill Bulger's daughter-in-law could take a position. Well, I understand you're not involved in personnel decisions. My understanding is you appoint the 3 commissioners, from what I understand, and there's also a procedure that allows you to remove them for cause. Are you approaching a point where you think this is an out-of-control commission which requires some action by you?
So I have had many things on my plate and have not delved into the details of exactly what's been going on under the hood of that agency, and that is going to be a place that I spend some more of my time thinking about understanding what's happening and the oversight that's needed. I will say that my primary interaction with the agency to date has been around the services that they deliver. And when it comes to making sure that our water system is working well and that the increased flooding is managed and moving to a stormwater fee that is equitable, that then allows for even more focus on resilience, they have been excellent on that front. Some of the other pieces around how the organization is run and the staffing challenges, it's certainly concerning and deserves more of a look.
You know, on an up note, a lot of people out in Mattapan are very happy about what happened with this Fairlawn complex, 347 pieces of houses out there. Tell people about, or apartments, I should say, what happened.
It was a really great day yesterday, a culmination of 6 years of organizing and fighting. So this is one of the largest complexes, housing complexes that we have in the city that would have been a market rate complex and historically had been seen as an affordable place to raise a family in Mattapan and in Boston. But when it was bought by a different company, private equity company, a few years ago, then residents started getting significant rent increases in the mail and then evictions notices. And they fought, organized, and we were able to actually use the city's new program that we've set up to facilitate the purchase of this by a new property owner that is now converting it to be permanently affordable housing. So we've now taken nearly 350 families and units of housing to be permanently affordable, so people never have to worry about what letters are coming in the mail and whether that's going to threaten their ability to be in their community and stay. This is part of our acquisition opportunity program. We had, prior to this, acquired 1,000 units of housing in the same way. It's the fastest way to create more affordable housing because you're basically taking something that already exists and then protecting it forever. This is the largest acquisition to date, and we've been able to use federal recovery funds on this, but now that those ARPA funds, yep. Exactly. Now that those have run out, though, we established a new fund to continue that the large hospitals and healthcare institutions in the cities have contributed their community mitigation funds into, recognizing that housing is important for health as well. And so we've been able to partner with all of those institutions in making huge strides forward for affordability.
Lorraine, you're in Brighton. You're on with the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hi, Lorraine.
Hello, Jim. Hello, Marjorie. And hello, Madam Mayor.
Hello.
I first of all want to congratulate you on your recent addition to the population of Boston. Thank you very much. And I have some thank yous and compliments for you. I'm very, very pleased that we now have a requirement for covered trash cans. I was just sick of seeing the black trash bags out on the street with the rats just waiting for dinner. So that's a real solid, concrete contribution. I thank you very much.
Lorraine, do you have a question for the mayor?
I do. I have one more thank you. Can
Quickly,
I give her
very
thank
quickly,
you?
please. Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to thank Kevin LaRue for getting my street paved. You finally connected me with him, and I'm very happy about that.
Our neighborhood liaison. Great.
My question would be, what are we going to do about these wild turkeys?
Amen, Lorraine. How about it, Mayor Wu?
That might be the one issue that will unite Brookline and Boston in a sort of
Thanks,
macro
Lorraine.
force.
Yeah.
How about it?
Thank you for the notes. Our neighborhood liaisons work so hard, and Kevin is fantastic, and I'm really happy to pass along the compliment to him. The trash cans, we are moving towards more containerization. It is technically not required, but we do encourage everyone to do that because, as you say, it makes a big difference for rats and rodents. And then turkeys, I don't know. Just try to stay away from them.
I think you have to learn to love them. That's been my experience. I've become friendly with quite a few of them in my neighborhood in Brookline. Yeah, they're everywhere. I don't know. I mean, really,
I've been
what
in
can
a
you do?
car once where they just decided that was the enemy, and it was the scariest thing I've ever been through.
Why don't you tell her a story about Dunkin' Donuts, Jim?
No, I'm not going to tell the story. Okay,
Jim has been accosted many times.
Okay, fine. But that's in Cambridge. Are you going to this? I think I read in the Globe yesterday. We talked to you the last time about the stadium being built in Everett and what community benefit or whatever payment should come from the Kraft family, not Josh Kraft, the Kraft, whatever it's called, their corporation that's building the soccer stadium. There's a meeting
tonight
that you're personally going to tonight. Okay.
In Charlestown.
So I think the numbers, I haven't looked at them recently. I think the city was offered $750,000. I believe the city's response was, well, when the casino was built, there was $68 million. So I assume that's your starting point. There's 750. What are you saying? What are you looking for from the Kraft business in terms of adequate compensation for the city?
Yeah, I mean, one technical note that the $750,000 they mention isn't even a contribution to the city of Boston that is part of a new discussion. This was actually in the MOU negotiated with the city of Everett, where they had tossed something for Boston into there, and they're just reiterating that they had already committed to that. But anyway, that aside, we're in Charlestown tonight to hear from residents. We've also been talking to climate groups with transportation and other officials around the types of mitigation that will be needed to offset the impacts. The site is technically in Everett, although Boston has a sliver of land over there, but the frontage is going to be out onto Boston streets and through Sullivan Square, because that will be the primary mode of transportation. So we're going to hear exactly what residents are feeling and what they're concerned about, and then come up with a package or an offer, if you will. But for me, right now, the focus is going to be on transportation, access, pedestrian safety to and from, and also other impacts that the city will feel.
Josh Kraft said he was going to stay out of this, and you said, I think here, maybe here, you can't recuse yourself from being mayor. What would an appropriate role be if your father was about to build a stadium? What would you do?
I would stay working for my father. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, then one more Josh Kraft thing, if I may, before we try to squeeze another call in. Last month, when we asked you about Josh Kraft's voluntary rent control thing, you called it fake rent control. Those are your words, fake rent control. Then a day or two later, my understanding, I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the city council passed something that they had been talking about prior to Kraft coming up with this, which was almost the same thing, and then you praised it. So it was fake rent control when Josh Kraft proposed it, but when the city council passes it, it's praiseworthy. Where's the disconnect?
Yeah, we need everything possible on housing right now, but it is one thing to say we're doing a good landlord tax credit because that serves a particular purpose, but calling it rent control to say that we no longer need to have protections against the worst kinds of predatory rent increases is a disservice and extremely misleading to residents. The deal with the Good Landlord program, which the legislature had passed as an opt-in, thank you, Senator Edwards and others, and the city council has now opted into, we still need as a city to figure out who qualifies and what the shape of that program will be. I imagine we're going to end up in a different place than what has been proposed on his part, where it is a very significant tax break for a type of action that I think many are taking, and we're glad that they're taking, but it does feel a little bit more like a giveaway than we would be comfortable with or able to afford on the city side. So we're working through that with the council, and in the meantime, we still very much need, you heard it at Fairlawn and Mattapan when we were with the residents, we need to protect against the most egregious kinds of increases, not in a voluntary way, but in a way that will ensure consistency and protection across the board.
We have someone at the microphone, I think. Is she still there, Deirdre, that had a question
It's
about...
got to be really quick.
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes left, but what's your question about the exam school, Deirdre? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Just real brief background. I'm a single parent of 2 public school children, and my kids went to the Henderson School, where the principal was assaulted 3 years ago and knocked unconscious. The conditions there were really bad. I moved my older daughter to a charter school, which wasn't a bonus point school. I found myself in a position where she was being doubly penalized because she didn't get any points and because we lived in a so-called nicer neighborhood. Since then, I've been testifying at nearly every school committee meeting, but no meaningful change has happened. And so my question to you, will you let another admission cycle go by where the majority of applicants in so-called nicer neighborhoods are excluded from exam school seats?
Thank you, Deirdre.
Nice to see you again, Deirdre. Thank you again for sticking up for your kids and for all of your advocacy. As you know, the superintendent and the school committee have announced the shifts from 8 tiers to 4 tiers for this admission cycle, while also undertaking the steps to present larger changes for next admission cycle, because this will be now 5 years since the policy was put in place. So they are evaluating a number of things, and we'll look to see the recommendations there. But I know your situation and have appreciated you taking the time to share it with me and with my team. And we very much want Boston to be a place where everyone feels like they have opportunity and everyone has access to the benefits that they believe their children should have and deserve. And we also want that to be not just limited to the exam schools as the one pathway, but through every seat in our school system. But we've had that conversation. It's good to see you
Deirdre,
again.
thanks. You always bring us a gift, and it looks like the gift you brought was a pamphlet announcing the state of the city. It's not that much of a gift.
I've set myself up for too high expectations. These are important. These are official invitations to the state of the city.
Invitations to the state of the city.
Here they are. You want to see this? Anybody?
I don't think I've ever had an invitation to the state of the city. Have you had an invitation, Jim?
When do you do? Well, I do now, apparently. What do you? When is this thing?
It's March 19th. So we had traditionally it's in January. I was delivering a baby then. So now we have shifted it back, and I'm no longer in DC either. So it's perfect timing, and really excited to see
Jim wants to know if they have food at the reception afterwards, because maybe in that case he'll show up.
Oh, my gosh.
8 to 9 is the reception, right?
Yeah, I don't think that was the point of the... So can you use 30 seconds before you go giving us a really... Let's end where we began, a really honest assessment of some of the most out-of-control Republicans you faced. Gosar, Mace. Do you want to do a quick whatever?
I mean, it was just hard to know what part of the question to answer because the facts were wrong, the accusations were so intense, and they were already decided. But what I realized is that a lot of these people are more used to talking to cameras than to real people. If you took them to any of our neighborhood association meetings on bike lanes, on the stadium, on anything else, I mean, our residents would hold their own against anyone. And I was really proud to represent Boston in that moment, to stand up strong for who we are and who we will continue to be.
Mayor Wu, it's great to see you. Thank
you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor Wu. We appreciate the invitation. And we're grateful that you come and talk to our listeners once a month. That was, of course, Michelle Wu, the mayor of the city of Boston. After the noon news, we're going to be joined by Carol Rowe. She's executive director of the ACLU of Massachusetts. We're going to talk to her about this former Columbia student, pro-Palestinian activist who was arrested and detained and taken to Louisiana, even though he has committed no crime, but standing up for the Palestinians in Gaza. And we're also going to talk to her about some law firms getting the backhand from President Trump. You're listening to Boston Public Radio from the Boston Public Library.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked number 1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the 2nd consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday. Anytime you're looking to learn something new about the cosmos, or just need a little space, GBH is in your orbit. Start streaming Nova and all your other favorite programs now on the PBS app.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. We'll start the noon hour with Carol Rose, Executive Director of the Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts, on Trump's threats to cut funding for education institutions which promote diversity, what it means that Trump is going after lawyers and law firms, and the fate of that pro-Palestinian demonstrator at Columbia who Trump wants to deport.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's a conversation about the future of Medicare and Medicaid, currently in the crosshairs of co-presidents Trump and Elon Musk. What power do they wield? What can everyday people do to protect themselves? We'll talk with Dr. Don Berwick, a former administrator. He ran the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It's all next on the second hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says the United States will impose an additional 25% tariff on steel and aluminum from Canada, raising the tariff to 50% overall. In a post on his Truth Social site, Trump said they would go into effect tomorrow when broader steel and aluminum tariffs were set to take effect. Trump cited a new electricity tariff from Canada as a reason for the change. Trump has announced and at times walked back or delayed tariffs against both Canada and Mexico and has imposed additional tariffs against China. The administration has said that April 2nd will be the start of worldwide reciprocal tariffs and have touted the date as a reset in trade relations. Seeing the impact on Wall Street, we see the Dow is now down 438 points, or more than 1% at 41,473. S&P's down 35 points, 0.5%. The Nasdaq has fallen 26. The president plans to address a group of business leaders today as economic uncertainty rattles the markets. Again, the meeting coming a day after stocks posted their worst day of 2025 so far. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben has more.
Trump is scheduled to speak to the Business Roundtable, an association of CEOs of major American companies. They will likely be seeking reassurance as Trump's chaotic tariff policy has contributed to steep stock losses. Trump has alternately threatened and delayed tariffs on Canada and Mexico. He has also imposed tariffs on China, leading China to retaliate. In a weekend interview with Fox News, Trump wouldn't rule out the possibility of a recession amid the tariffs. While stock indexes don't necessarily track overall economic health, other indicators like consumer confidence and consumer spending have shown weakness as well. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News.
Saudi Arabia is hosting talks for ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Ahead of the meeting, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States was ready to hear what concessions Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky would be willing to make as part of ending the war. NPR's Joanna Kakissis has more.
Zelensky has already proposed a partial ceasefire covering aerial attacks in the Black Sea. Not sure if Russia would agree to this, but Rubio seemed to welcome the move. And public opinion polls show between 20 and 30% of Ukrainians would consider giving up occupied territory in return for peace. Look, Ukrainians do not trust Russia to honor any truces. Russia also invaded Chechnya and Georgia and violated ceasefires there. The same thing happened to Ukraine after 2014 when Russia first attacked. And 8 years later, Russia launched the full-scale invasion.
NPR's Joanna Kakissis reporting. The Dow down 445 points, more than 1% at 41,466. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Free speech advocates are urging Boston College to change its protest policies. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza reports, pro-Palestinian students say they had to wait 80 days for the green light to demonstrate on the Chestnut Hill campus.
BC's student newspaper, The Heights, first reported that administrators required organizers to disclose exactly what would be said at their demonstration. Laura Beltz is with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. She says BC and other schools should ease restrictions and allow students to speak freely.
It certainly makes sense for them to ask for some events to be scheduled in advance, but there should be opportunities for these small groups to be able to conduct activities spontaneously.
In a statement, a BC spokesperson denies administrators delayed approval, saying all students must provide basic details about their protest plans. The dispute comes as the Trump administration pressures colleges to crack down on pro-Palestinian protests and alleged anti-Semitism, or risk losing their federal funding. Kirk Carapeza, GBH News, 89.7.
After 7 months of below normal rain, state environmental officials have declared a significant drought for several areas of Massachusetts, and where there's a drought, there's a threat of wildfires. One threat is in the Berkshires, west of the Pioneer Valley. Another is Suffolk County, and officials say to exercise caution when handling any potential flammable sources. That includes machinery, cigarettes, matches, anything that can ignite. 58 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses from retailers to tradespeople. Progressive covers a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More at progressivecommercial.com.
Here's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Thank you. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of programming notes. Tomorrow here at the library, we're going to have a double header. We're going to be joined by the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey, from 11 to 12, and then at 1 o'clock, the MBTA General Manager, Phil Eng. Both of them will take our questions and yours. On Thursday, back in the Brighton studio, we're going to be joined by the Secretary of Veterans Services for Massachusetts, John Santiago, talking about these cuts at the Veterans Administration. We will not be here at the BPL on Friday because the library is closed on Friday. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. We're joined now at the library by Carol Rose. She's the Executive Director of the Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts. Carol, good to see you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
So, Carol Rose, you've got a lot going on at the ACLU in terms of litigation involving the Trump administration. So tell us a couple of things that are going on here or nationally that we should know about.
Well, so far, the ACLU has filed almost 20 lawsuits. I think if that was the latest count, which is like almost every other day we're filing a lawsuit. And so we're trying to stand Boston strong, as seems to be the tradition these days. And we're filing a lot of suits here in the District of Massachusetts to challenge the most egregious aspects of these Trump executive orders, many of which are just clearly unconstitutional and illegal.
Can we ask about a couple of them?
Sure.
The Department of Education is threatening to cut funding for any school, educational institution that even whispers DEI.
Right.
What ground do they have to stand on there?
They don't have any ground to stand on it. So this started out, as they often do, with the Trump executive order, and then was followed up by a quote-unquote Dear Colleague letter, which was sent out to K through 12 and universities and colleges, basically saying that you have 14 days to try to tell us that you're not going to teach anything that might offend anybody, that might make anybody feel uncomfortable. So it's DEI, but it's just sort of anything. So imagine what that means for if you're an English teacher or a social studies teacher or a political science teacher, that you can't teach anything without fearing that the Department of Education is going to come in and file a Title VI complaint against you and threaten your funding and these kinds of things. So last Wednesday, here in Massachusetts, we filed a challenge to that and basically said that this not only violates the First Amendment right to freedom of speech and expression, but also the Fifth Amendment due process and the Administrative Procedures Act, which means the government can't just be arbitrary and capricious. So we filed that lawsuit, and we're going to be having a hearing about it coming up one of these days.
Yeah, but it seems to me, and I think it's great you're doing what you're doing, that the brilliance, and I use the term intentionally, of the Trump people is if we lose the lawsuit, they don't say this, we lose the lawsuit because look what's happening in educational institutions. They're dumping their DEI stuff, even though I assume their lawyers are almost as smart as your lawyers who say, we're going to win this case, but for fear of funding cuts through some other avenue. It's same. I mean, Margie and I were watching CNN last night when there was a lot of discussion about from Norm Eisen, who used to be the counsel to the first impeachment committee, and he's on a bunch of important organizations now, talking about going after law firms, which talk about a chilling effect.
Exactly.
And he's saying that some law firms, even though they think they're going to win this case too, are not taking certain clients for fear that they're going to be barred from access to things they need to represent other clients.
They're taking away the security clearances that they need in some of these cases.
To represent the clients.
Talking about barring them from federal buildings, which I assume includes federal courthouses. So the whole thing seems crazy.
So the point I'm trying to make is they win even if they lose.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but that's partly if we decide that we're going to let ourselves be intimidated. And I think it's really important to see that places like the American Bar Association and Georgetown Law School and all these places are coming together. And I think the law firms are banding together. I mean, there's strength and safety in numbers. And I think it's tremendously important that not only are we seeing that in the private sector of people and organizations speaking back, but we're seeing it also with our elected officials. I mean, these people are bullies. And we know that bullies back down. We watched it with Mayor Wu down in the hearings. You know, when she stood up to them, they backed down, right? They didn't want to.
Were you there?
I was there.
You were in the room?
I was in the room, and I was part of a civil rights delegation that was sent down from Massachusetts to be Boston Strong. And I just have to tell you, sitting in that room and watching people like Gosar and Nancy Mason, those people, the minute that Mayor Wu spoke back to them in strong terms, you know what they did? They ceded their time and they skulked out of the hearing room. And he didn't see that.
They did?
They did. And you didn't see that on CNN, on the live TV.
I didn't know that.
But we saw it, and I was so proud to be from Massachusetts and to be from Boston because, we don't like bullies. We push back on bullies. The people of Boston, the people of Massachusetts are pretty nice people. But you get up, you take them on, and they'll get right back at you. And that's what's happening. And that's where bullies back down. So I think it's tremendously important that we continue to stand up and to not let them chill us, to chill our speech. And I have to just say, on this lawsuit about the K through 12, these efforts to silence teachers and students, it was wonderful to see that our governor and our attorney general, they issued guidance also to say, don't be chilled by this. Keep teaching what you're teaching. Keep teaching history the way that our students deserve. Keep teaching the courses that we need to have on literature so that our students are educated. Attacks on education, that's a fundamental attack on democracy. And we need to stop and just say, we won't be afraid. 250 years ago, I just have to say this, 250 years ago, the revolution against a self-anointed king, it started here in Massachusetts. And now it's our time. And we have to carry on that tradition. And I think we have the right people in elected office right now. And we have the right people in our universities and our colleges and our law firms. And if we stand together and we push back, those bullies will back down.
But you know something? I like to think that too. But, we've talked a lot about Harvard University, the richest university on earth, that really has not really put up a fight. They have been backing down. This anticipatory obedience, a new phrase of the year that we've talked about over and over again, and that's obedience beforehand to President Trump. So I have wondered about that. You mentioned Georgetown is standing up on this thing about going after these lawyers, but why aren't these universities? It's
I don't think
surprising.
being rich and prestigious makes you brave. I'm just going to put it out there.
Well,
right?
I guess that we know that because of Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk.
But we also know that even when these universities cave, when they go anticipatory obedience, as you said, look what happened at Columbia. They definitely did a lot of anticipatory obedience, and they're still being hit by the Trump administration.
400 million they took away.
Yeah, and so I think it's really important that all of us recognize that backing down, silencing, chilling, trying to appease, it actually doesn't work with these people. They're going to go after Massachusetts. They're going to go after people who don't agree with them, irrespective of whether we give in or not. So let's fight back, because that's, I think, how we have a fighting chance.
So let's stay at Columbia for a minute. Everybody's read about the $400 million in research grants that are being pulled. One of the more egregious, and it's hard to rank them, is the effort to deport this Mahmud Khalil, this student who is pro-Palestinian, And because I didn't realize this till I read another story this morning in the New York Times, because he was so concerned about how far the federal government would go, even though he had a green card here and he was here legally, he didn't actually get involved in most of the demonstrations. He was more involved in the negotiations with leadership.
He was a peacemaker.
At Columbia. And they're attempting to deport him. By the way, his wife is 8 months pregnant. They're talking about deporting her too, and a citizen.
They threatened to arrest her the night they showed up.
Right.
So, what's going on here? There has been an injunction, or at least a temporary restraining order granted.
Right.
So at least the deportation has stayed.
That's right.
But there's no basis for this.
No,
he's not lending support to Hamas by saying he's pro-Palestinian rights, right?
That's correct. Now, this is a pure free speech case. This is a pure case of somebody being attacked because of their political views. And he had a green card. He's a legal permanent resident, married to a U.S. citizen. They had no basis. They had no warrant. They broke into his home. They busted down the door. They took him away. And at first they said, we're taking away your student visa. And he's like, I'm not on a student visa. His lawyer was on the phone. And then they said, okay, well, then we'll take away your green card. And so this is just lawlessness. And they basically kidnapped him. And first they said that he was being held in New York or New Jersey. And then they accidentally, quietly and secretly took him down to Louisiana and put him in a detention camp there.
So, in the normal United States of America, you don't usually get arrested unless you've committed, or someone is alleging you've committed a crime.
That's correct.
So
basic.
Yeah. So I don't understand how is he still detained?
Yes, he's still detained.
So
we have filed.
get away with this?
Well, we filed a writ of habeas corpus, and that means to produce the body. So we're trying
Who's we?
His lawyer and the ACLU.
Oh, okay.
And so we filed a writ of habeas corpus, and we're going to court, and we're trying to set him free. And it's so important for people to keep in mind, whether or not you agree with his particular political views, if the government is allowed to arrest people because they don't like their political views, then imagine if that's what the ruling is, then the next time around you might have a government that's anti-Semitic and arrest people who don't agree with those political views.
Okay, I don't want to be my usual.
Wait a minute. You might have people coming to arrest women who were holding up signs on Boston Common last week whose political views Trump doesn't like either, because that was basically an anti-Trump rally.
Right.
So to me, because this guy had a green card and is a permanent resident, that's really no different than arresting you wouldn't maybe deport an American citizen. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's next. But you could, if you can arrest this guy, then you could arrest Susie Jones on Boston Common.
And so this is just so clearly a violation of our Constitution. It's so clearly illegal that's why the ACLU has joined the case, and we're fighting it. And I think it's really important for people to realize that whether or not you agree with this guy's personal views, it could be your views next time.
Yeah, but can I get back to this chilling thing? I don't mean to be my usual negative self, but let's assume a green card holder comes to you.
Yes.
And says, I'm thinking of going to a demonstration tomorrow and taking a position. I'm pro-trans. And we know how much Donald Trump hates trans people. Right. We'll talk about that in a second. And I'm nervous about going. Mm-hmm. You, the lawyer, say you have nothing to worry about. That's your free speech right. And he or she says back to you, well, there's a problem. Maybe I'll win. I don't want to be sent to Louisiana secretly in the middle of the night. I don't want my partner who's 8 months pregnant or my whatever. So I'll win my case, Carol Rose, but that'll be after the torture of my family. So what do you say to that person? Because they're right.
That all the more reason that those of us who have the privilege of citizenship are willing to stand up and to fight against this. Because if we don't, then we can't expect the least among us to do the fighting. And a society is judged, a commonwealth is judged by how we treat the least among us. So if other people don't have the power so they can stand up, those of us who have that power need to stand up. And if we do it in numbers, there's a lot more safety in numbers, there's strength in numbers, and all of us have to do our part. Whatever our walk of life, we have a role to play. And right now is the time, if you care about democracy, if you see yourself as a patriot, now is the time to stand up against these attacks on our democracy. Right now.
Here's the thing, a couple of things. There seems to be a double standard about any kind of pro-Palestinian action, because we had this demonstration, peaceful demonstration at Harvard, where a few I don't know, a few dozen people were demonstrating peacefully in favor of Palestinian rights because, of course, we're seeing what happens in Gaza. That's not to deny October 7th or the terrorists of Hamas or anti-Semitism or anything else, but we're already squelching peaceful demonstrations. So I guess the question would be, how are you supposed to demonstrate if you are concerned about what's happening in Gaza without being suspended from school or suspended if you're a teacher? We're already doing this, aren't we?
It's really important. We can't leave it to the people. There's an attempted erasure of people. They're trying to erase people because they don't like their political views, or because they're transgender, or because they're pro-abortion rights, or because they're voted Democrat. I mean, there's all these reasons, and that's why all of us need to stand up for each other. Because if we just say that we're going to let the people who care about transgender rights fend for themselves, and the people who care about Palestinian rights or women's rights or racial justice all stand alone, then that's really hard to do. I mean, because you will be chilled, you will be afraid. But if we can stand together, and again, those of us who have the privilege of being able to stand up with and for other people, now is the moment to do that. Because if we do that, then we have a fighting chance of pushing this stuff back. And if we give in right now to the fear, they win, and they want us to give in. They want us to despair, and they want us to act out of fear.
Well, most Americans have given in. I mean, they have. I mean, while there was a wonderful rally, on the Common the other day with several thousand women. That's the aberration, not
it's
the
not
norm.
The aberration. In fairness, there were rallies all over the country. You saw them all over federal buildings.
It was great.
Tesla dealerships. There weren't 500,000 people, but there were thousands of people that showed up for these different rallies. And Bernie Sanders got 9,000 people in some auditorium somewhere for his speech.
Wisconsin.
But I want to
point out thousands of new volunteers at the ACLU joining the ACLU action team, and I invite everybody to join it. ACLUM.org, because if we stand together and we work together, sometimes it's rallies, but there's a lot of other things that we
there's
can
one
do.
other important point here to make, that they're so talking about arresting this kid because he's for anti-Semitism, and yet you have the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, and Elon Musk over in Germany hanging out with people with neo-Nazi ties.
That's right.
So I don't know if the Vice President is hanging out with neo-Nazis, yet you're arresting someone who's it's the hypocrisy.
We have a rogue administration. We just do.
Yeah.
And so we have to deal with that.
And by the way, Elon Musk bought Twitter so free speech could live proudly in the United States of America, and this person is being arrested for free speech.
Exactly.
So it's just baloney. I'd like to use a stronger word, but
wow.
I think hypocrisy works.
Stop it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I want to ask you.
Okay, Jim, I've said my piece. Go ahead.
I totally agree with you. I'm glad you said your piece. We talked to Mayor Wu briefly about this. Already, there is the Small Business Administration office is moving. In fairness, they say the services will continue, but the office won't be in Boston or any other alleged, quote, sanctuary city. Trump is threatening, either directly or through his people, to eliminate tons of federal funding for people who are sympathetic in any way to immigrants. And it seems to me that different federal courts have come to different conclusions. Some have said he has broad latitude, like the Supreme Court did on that immunity case. Some have said the reduction in funding can only be related to the act that you want to punish. For example, if you wanted to get rid of some police funding from the feds, you might be able to get away with it. And others say he can't do anything if it's retaliatory. Where do you think the law rests on this? Because I'm assuming that as long as Mayor Wu continues to stand up, the federal government, through Homan or Trump himself, is going to do as much cutting of federal funding as they can possibly do.
Yeah, I hear that, except I would submit they're going to do it anyway. All right,
Maybe.
they're going to do it anyway. They're going to do it because they're going to say, well, Massachusetts didn't, the majority of the people of Massachusetts didn't vote for Trump, so we're going to punish.
So is it legal if it's
No.
based upon the fact that we have an immigration policy, or I shouldn't call it that, a policy around cooperation with ICE or non-cooperation? Can they legally cut any federal funding in retaliation for that behavior?
So first, if they try to do it through an executive order, then no, because Congress has the power of the purse, right? Now, if Congress were to pass a law, and there is an effort underway for them to do that, it becomes harder to challenge it in court. But even then, we would challenge it to say it has to be focused on the issue that they're concerned about. They can't say, okay, we're going to cut, what they're trying to do is to say, we're going to cut Meals on Wheels. we're going to cut police departments. We're going to cut bus drivers.
Well, police departments are related.
Right. Well, are they? Not.
Well, yeah. If the police are not cooperating under the Trust Act, then they are related,
so
right?
what I would say is, number one, they're going to do it anyway. Okay. Look at what they're doing. They're just going and wiping out whole agencies and firing government workers and doing that. So they're going to do it anyway because they're agents of havoc. That's what they're in chaos. That's what they're trying to do. So number one. And number two, so giving in doesn't actually keep you safe. That's like a myth that we have to help people to understand. They will back down, I think, more if we're challenging them. If we're challenging them in the courts, we're challenging the newspaper, there are people taking to the streets, people making calls. Then they'll start to hear that. And they have so far, in a lot of cases, backed down when people have challenged them. And when I talk about those members of the House committee skulking out, they didn't want to take on Mayor Wu after she stood up to them. But boy, they were willing to go after Eric Adams in New York because he wasn't standing up to them.
And
so I think it's important to keep that in mind. Standing up is the best way to stay safe.
A lot of these congressmen that are Republicans have decided to meet with their constituents by phone because they don't want to have to go to these town meetings, get pummeled by people that are upset about what they're doing with the federal government. But this is what Donald Trump said, right? I am your retribution, and retribution seems to be his focus for his first 100 days, plus his tariffs, which are tanking the stock market.
Can we bring up one other, you used the word bullying a few times before. The ultimate bullying to me of candidate Trump and President Trump is directed at trans people, arguably the most vulnerable population. The two examples that come to mind, I know you're involved in at least one of these, the National Endowment for the Arts, they are talking about grants being canceled if there's any connection to what they call, talk about demeaning, gender ideology. It's ideology is the word that just gives me chills. And also, we've read tons of stories about trans people and the nightmare of trying to get a passport because I think by executive order, it's either male, female at birth, and that's the end of the discussion. What's happening on the legal front on any of those
On both of those. So those are both ACLU cases. So with the National Endowment for the Arts, we filed that lawsuit down in Rhode Island and said you can't discriminate against artists because of what you say is their ideology, and nobody even knows what gender ideology actually means.
They mean, of course, it's your political statement rather than who you are.
Exactly.
Because they disrespect who you are.
Exactly.
Obviously,
So the good news is that after we filed the lawsuit, the NEA backed down. And they said they aren't going to do that. Now, the case is still ongoing, but in the meantime, they have until I think it's March 28th or 29th for people to submit for those grants. So we hope people will. Don't be chilled. File for the grants.
Good.
We care about the arts. On the passport situation, that's another lawsuit. We filed that here in Massachusetts. This is an effort by the Trump administration to basically say there's like thousands of people who can't get passports or applied for a passport and can't get them back because the State Department says we don't agree with what you say your gender is. Now, in 21 states, including Massachusetts, you have the option to put male, female, or X, like I don't want to tell you. And they came back and they said, no, you can't. And what this does, it has the impact of basically saying anytime you cross a border with your passport, you're going to be effectively outed by wherever you are, which can be pretty dangerous in a lot of places. But even beyond this attempted erasure of people that the Trump administration doesn't agree with, even beyond that, just think about this. Your travel papers, restricting your right to travel by taking away your travel papers. I mean, if we permit them to do that with transgender people, they could do it with women. They could do it with people who voted Democrat. They could do it with anybody that they don't like. And so the principle in all of these cases, it's tremendously important to keep in mind. Whoever the client is right now, and they always target people who are the least among us, but what they will do then in trying to erase those people, they win the precedent because then they can do it for you. And as Reinhold Niebuhr said, first they came for them, and who was left to come for me. So that's why all of us need to stand up for the principles, the patriotic principles that keep our country safe and free.
Do you have a related question? Because I have one more passport question.
No, but so go ahead real quick.
I know you answered this a couple of months ago, but I forget what the answer is. Okay, so they're obviously penalizing trans people in terms of international travel. What did you tell us were the rules about somebody, let's say hypothetically, who has 34 felony convictions, be able to get a passport and travel? No, I'm serious.
I don't know. I mean, I don't
Why
know.
can he try? Are felons?
I don't know that
multiple
there's any
felons?
restrictions
Oh,
on
there's
multiple
not.
felons.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
didn't
aware
know
of
that.
it.
Okay, all right, fine.
It's just one last thing, and we're almost out of time here, but I always wonder about the interim. You know, the courts move very slowly. So Norm Eyes and the guys with Nancy Gertner on this committee fighting back for democracy, he was saying last night that these efforts to clamp down on these lawyers are violating the First Amendment free speech, the due process, Fifth Amendment, and the sixth thing about everybody entitled
Right
to
to
having
counsel,
right to counsel,
Right.
exactly. But in the interim, they've taken away his rights. So do we have to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years?
So here's how it works. So initially we go in and we ask for what's called a temporary restraining order, or a TRO. And the TRO is usually about 2 weeks, about 14 days. And that'll pause everything and say, you have to stop the implementation of this illegal law.
Yeah.
And then after that, you file for a preliminary injunction, which then stops it for the pendency of the case.
Okay.
So that's why we go in on
So
these
he should
cases.
be able to get his security clearance back.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the hope is that if we can win on the preliminary injunction, then people can continue to go forward. Now, there may be that, fear factor that prevents people from wanting to, out of fear on how it's ultimately going to resolve. But they should be protected during the pendency of a case if we're able to win that preliminary injunction.
You know, it's important to say they're not only going after the lawyers, they're going after the companies that have federal contracts that are represented by these certain law firms. I mean, it really is. It's like something out of Russia.
Yeah, no, it is, and that's
Which I guess shouldn't surprise us.
Or shouldn't surprise us at all. I mean, I think they have the authoritarian handbook from Putin, from Orban in Hungary, and from these places, and they're simply un-American and unpatriotic. And I'm so proud to be from Massachusetts, where we don't put up with that kind of bullying, and we are the birthplace of democracy, and I think we're going to have to continue to be that.
By the
Very
way,
nice,
before you
Carol
go,
Rose.
that was great. Before you go, our noted constitutional scholar, Zoe, our colleague, says Mexican law permits Mexican immigration authorities to deny foreigners entry into Mexico if they've been charged with or convicted of a serious crime in Mexico or elsewhere.
Oh.
Hello.
Mexico does that.
Okay.
I think there'd be too many officials in the federal government right now.
They couldn't go to Mexico. Fair enough.
Carol,
Rose,
thank you
great
very
to see
much.
you. Thank you so much.
We've been speaking with Carol Rose, who's Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union in Massachusetts. After a quick break, we're going to talk with Dr. Don Berwick, who used to run the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. We're going to ask him about what these cuts, these massive cuts to both Medicare and Medicaid could mean to mass health here in Massachusetts, or to, your grandma who is in a nursing home. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Massachusetts is the lottery capital of America. How this came to be involves complex math,
probability, and combinatorics,
Catholics,
bingo,
and a vaudeville enthusiast.
Bob was a showman. Bob was an entertainer.
I'm Ian Koss, host of Scratch and Win, a new podcast about the unlikely rise of the most successful state lottery in the country. Listen to Scratch and Win wherever you get your podcasts.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Safety Insurance, offering a variety of home insurance products to cover your home's increased value. You can ask an independent agent about Safety Insurance. Safety Insurance. We'll help you manage life's storms. And Boston Ballet, presenting Swan Lake. This timeless love story features thrilling dancing, masterful music, and breathtaking sets. On stage now through March 16th. Official tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marge Regan and Jim Browdy with Live at the Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. The governor will be here for Ask the Governor from 11 to 12. And at 1 o'clock, Phil Eng, the GM of the T, will be here for Ask the GM. Republicans in Congress claim they are not out for Medicare and Medicaid. Donald Trump says they're safe, but their budget math just doesn't add up. And the far-right Freedom Caucus is urging members to get out of the way of what they call, quote, Medicaid reform, which I believe translates into let's cut programs for low and moderate income people so we can pay for tax cuts for the wealthy. We'll see if he agrees. We're joined now at the library by Dr. Don Berwick. He was the former administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services for Barack Obama. He's now a lecturer of healthcare policy at Harvard Medical School, senior fellow at the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. Don Berwick, it's great to see you again. Welcome. Really glad to have you.
Great to talk to you again, Don Berwick. Thank you so much for coming in. So tell people first, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion. Who is covered by Medicaid?
Arguably, almost every family is affected by Medicaid. It's about 72 million people right now, which is larger than Medicare. Medicare's, I think, a bit over 50 million. It's certainly by far the largest social safety net program we have in the country. It covers 40% of all children in the country, nearly 50% of all births. It covers about 60% of all nursing home care.
Which I think a lot of people aren't aware of. When you look at how much it costs to pay for nursing, I mean, these are like $5,000 and $10,000 a month. Who's got that kind of money?
Nobody, and middle-class families find themselves eventually relying on Medicaid for nursing home coverage. It's a massive source of income for hospitals, and especially asymmetrically for stressed hospitals, rural hospitals, safety net hospitals. I think it's the most important single support system we have in this country to help people who are in trouble.
And Mass Health in Massachusetts, that's Medicaid too, isn't it?
Medicaid in Mass Health, was it 1.6 million people? I can't remember the total number
That's a
here.
lot.
It's a lot of people, yeah. Everybody's affected, and if Medicaid gets undercut, everyone's going to feel that.
And we should know, just taking Massachusetts as an example, every state's got their own deal. 50% of the money that we spend on the population Don Berwick was just describing in Massachusetts comes from the federal government. So if there are significant cuts, the state has got to raise taxes, which the legislature does not want to do, cut other programs or cut health services for people who are most in need. So when you hear, Don Berwick, that while the budget framework passed by the House requires an $880 billion cut in the umbrella that includes Medicaid, but don't worry, we're not going to touch Medicaid except for fraud and abuse and those sort of things. What does that say to you?
It's ridiculous. Well, let's first be clear about why Congress needs that $880 billion. They're doing it because they want to continue tax cuts for extremely wealthy people in this country. Paul Krugman's written great stuff about that. That could be solved with a stroke of a pen if we decide not to subsidize further the very wealthy people in this country. So because of those tax subsidy continuations, tax breaks for for rich people, we need to cover the gap. That's the $880 billion over 10 years. When you look at the federal budget and you look for areas which you could possibly recover anything like that, Medicaid absolutely sticks out like a sore thumb. It is the only place Congress can go for anything close to that amount of money if they want to perpetuate the tax.
One of the heartening things, we saw a poll from the Kaiser Family Fund, is that what the second F is? Fund, saying that only 17% of the country wanted Medicaid cuts. That was really heartening to me because at least 50% generally. But the flip side is, I'm sort of arguing against myself because that's a good number. We read another piece that I thought was very telling in terms of messaging, and we talk a lot about messaging on the show. It's not good enough to just be right. You have to be able to communicate that. And the point was made in this article, if you're in Tennessee, it's called TennCare.
Yeah.
If you're in Massachusetts, as Marjorie said, it's Mass Health. And I bet you if you went down the street and asked 100 people, which do you prefer, this is a la Jimmy Kimmel, Mass Health or Medicaid, they'd pick one, and virtually none of them would say Mass Health is Medicaid. So do you think messaging is something that we've got to be better? Were you good at it? No, I'm serious. When you were running Medicare and Medicaid, or Medicaid and Medicare, whatever it is.
Tried hard, but in Washington, there's a kind of wonky approach to messaging either party in which you kind of stay inside the beltway and you're trying to talk people about the Medicare Trust Fund or the deficit. That's not what's going on at the kitchen table. The kitchen table, it's medicine, healthcare is costing far too much. I don't understand why. It's so complex I can't understand it, and I can't get to a doctor. So we need to talk that language. On your point about Medicaid, 27 states, Medicaid is not called Medicaid. And so why would the public connect the dots if we don't do it for them? The other thing is the right has been pretty good at convincing people that Medicaid is the place where the poor abuse the system. This is absolute nonsense. There is no data supporting that. So this move towards, say, work requirements. Well, yeah, they ought to go to work, instead of relying on the public dole. Have you ever met a Medicaid patient? Already, 2/3 of Medicaid patients are working. 92% of Medicaid families that could work, that are not so disabled they couldn't work, are at work. This idea that there's this big scam going on is absolutely ridiculous. So what the Republicans are doing is stuff that's going to be very harmful, I'd say murderous, by supporting states to not make it very hard to enroll or to re-enroll in Medicaid. These work requirement stuff is just, it's really intellectually garbage. And somehow we've sold that. They've been able to sell that message. We haven't been able to push back with the real data.
Can I channel Marjorie for a second? One of the things that you found to be most incredible on part of governors in red states during the Obamacare thing was when Obamacare provided an opportunity to expand Medicaid, and governors had an opportunity to get relatively free money to provide more expansive and better health care to some of their poorest people. A ton of the red state governors, obviously purely for ideological reasons, said, no, we don't want the money. What was your reaction when you heard that?
Well, I wasn't surprised given the political polarization that I was dealing with in Washington, but it's really kind of dumb. They're leaving a tremendous amount of money on the table. Under the Affordable Care Act, the way it worked at expansion was any state that had difficulty, that had eligibility requirements for Medicaid that were really low, like 16% of the federal poverty limit. If you're above that, you can't get Medicaid. So what the Affordable Care Act did said, no, we'll change it. Everybody's can be the same. 138% of poverty, you can be on Medicaid, and the federal government would pick up 100% of that increase at the state level. For 3 or 4 years, it's been down to 95%. Well, it was a lot of rhetoric. The federal government won't be there when we need them, and so on. But that meant exactly what you said, Jim, that states left millions, probably billions of dollars on the table. There are now still 10 states that have not expanded Medicaid. If they did, immediately 1.6 million people would get coverage, and most of that
1.6 million additional people would be covered.
Would be covered. They're in a kind of a coverage hole. They're too poor to qualify for the exchanges on the Affordable Care Act, and too rich to get Medicaid in the states unless they expand. I thought that it took about 20 years for Medicaid to be adopted across the country when it was first passed. It was a state option. Eventually, everybody stepped in. I thought that would happen apace now because it's a way for the states to get free money. But till 10 states have stood aside.
Well, I remember two anecdotes from this particular thing about Medicaid not being expanded. I remember they had a free clinic in Tennessee, which is not a wealthy state, and all these people that were just they weren't poor enough to get insurance through Medicaid, or the expansion was not accepted in their state, and they're lining up all night in this parking lot at a mall to try to get basic health care, hundreds of people. And I also remember, and I'm embarrassed to say, Jim, maybe you remember which state it was. There was a state that the legislature was opposed to Medicaid expansion, and the voters went and voted to expand it and overrode the Republicans in that state who didn't want to expand it. So I think there is a messaging problem, because I think if more people realized that their own representatives whom they elect are denying their health care, they might get a little bit more upset about it. People don't seem to realize this.
I agree with you both about messaging. First, there's a sort of compassion side to this. What kind of country do you want to be? We're the only country in the world, the developed country, that says, sorry, you can't get health care because you're too poor. We say that still to tens of millions of Americans. That's not the country I think we want to be. We want to be a country where there's a guarantee. Second, it's not them, it's us. That's back to the nursing home point. If Medicaid gets cut, anything like the Republicans intend, there's hardly a household in this Commonwealth that isn't going to feel it.
That's right.
And so it's not the other people that are getting hurt.
Although the governor has said we can have granny flats now, and that's what some of us are looking forward to.
This is a governor
room in the backyard.
This is a governor that will step up, I'm sure, should that disaster threaten. But I think that we've got to understand this is all of us affected by this, and your hospital's affected, because Medicaid is really an important source of revenue for our hospitals. And the more stressed the hospital is, the more it's in a rural community or a safety net hospital or the sole source hospital, the more they're relying on Medicaid. So, and if they have to cut services, it's your services they're going to cut. They're not going to say, if you're on Medicaid, we won't serve you. They'll say, sorry, we can't offer the service anymore.
So Don Berwick, when you were talking to Dr. Don Berwick, who's head of the Centers for, which is it, Medicare or Medicaid? Medicaid or Medicaid? Which goes first? You don't even know.
Medicare,
so it's fine.
Medicare and Medicaid.
Whatever it is, okay, Medicare and Medicaid. So I don't know if you dream, but CMS, which you ran, reports to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Do you wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat saying, oh my God, I'm reporting to RFK Jr. tomorrow for getting it? So what do you think of his performance in the few weeks that, the most recent is he's proposing, what did he do yesterday on measles and some?
Well, he said that a good diet and lots
Right.
of cod liver oil, which contains
That'll do it.
vitamin A, will help you a lot with measles. And apparently the only place that works is in parts of Africa where the diet is so bad that people don't have vitamin A.
Yeah.
It's not going to prevent the measles, but it might give you a more healthy metabolism. But it's crazy.
How worried are you about RFK's position here?
I'm very worried. We're worried about his attitude towards science and the cavalier way in which he's dismissing things we know that could affect people. But there's something even more important happening right now. On Friday, we have hearings for Dr. Oz,
Oh, God.
who would be in the position that I was in, the head of CMS. And that's a slightly more complicated situation. But the threat there is first, he'll march to the tune of the White House. So you can't do otherwise when you're in that office. But also, he has taken for years now a very strong stand of privatizing Medicare, that it should become all Medicare Advantage. Right now, when you qualify for Medicare, you get a choice. You can say the government will be your insurer, or I'll choose United, or Humana as my insurer. The government, please pay United, and then they'll cover me. And, well, you can make the choice. I certainly choose traditional Medicare, which the government's the insurer. Dr. Oz has said all Medicare Advantage, default Medicare Advantage, which is a continuation, the expansion of a real disaster.
Could you explain that? I read something in Stat that had you quoted all over the place a few months ago, talking about, we're talking about Medicaid to begin this conversation. Medicare, I assume people know, health for people over 65 or whatever it is.
65.
You were talking about the threat of Medicare Advantage, which I have to say, most seniors with whom I speak think it's not only not a threat, but a salvation. Why are they wrong?
Okay, well, first, thank you for the clarification. People get confused between Medicare and Medicaid.
Including Robert Kennedy during his testimony in front of the
tell you the difference.
hearing.
My goodness, he's going to be HHS secretary? That was very scary. So we have to be clear about that. The issues in Medicaid are not the same as Medicare. Medicare depends, it's a contributory insurance system, which you paid on your taxes, and there's a trust fund that is limited, which will run out right now, I think, in the late 2020, whatever year, 2026, or no, 2028 or something. But
that's soon.
They keep kicking the can down the road one way or another. But here's the issue. Medicare Advantage, in which the government pays a private insurer that then covers you, is a massive profit-making engine for the insurance companies. For most insurance companies that are in that game, it's by far their biggest way to make profit. How do they do that? They do it a couple of ways. One is they game the coding. They make you look sicker than you are through coding, which we could spend a whole nother show on, but it is a very well-developed industry, which basically creates the image that the Medicare Advantage member, the one that's chosen private insurance, is sicker than they really are, which means the government pays them a lot more money. That's a cross-subsidy. They also do it by restrictions, like pre-certification. Oh, you're not really covered for that, or they're going to delay payment. That is to the tune of $83 billion a year of overpayment to that private system. Now, why are people like it? Well, a couple of reasons. One is that $83 billion is partly given back to people in lower premiums or lower out-of-pocket
or expanded coverage into some areas that Medicare doesn't cover, right? No?
Yeah, like gym memberships. Although
not more serious than that?
No.
Okay.
A little bit less co-payment. But we've now, there's been a lot of research about, do people actually use that? No, they don't. That money goes, by and large, to profit and the growth of the stock market value of these companies. So it's the biggest wealth transfer in the healthcare system in America is the subsidy of the
So
Medicare
you
Advantage
advise
plans.
someone 65 and older who, obviously you stay on your private health insurance if you can at your workplace or whatever deal you have, but once you apply for Medicare, want to be clear. You're urging people to stay on traditional Medicare.
I do traditional Medicare because if I need to go to the Mayo Clinic, I want to go to the Mayo Clinic. I don't want to tell me that that's not in your coverage area. I don't want delays in payments. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose people might want to try it, but be careful because you're going to discover when you actually need the care that there are restrictions that you didn't realize you had.
You know, this isn't about Medicare and Medicaid, but since you've just brought up insurance companies and overcharging people, you know, we had this murder of the United Healthcare executive earlier in the year. We haven't really heard that much about it since. But when it happened, we were hearing all these terrible stories about people being denied health care or having, you know, real serious conditions and delays and delays and delays and delays. I mean, big picture, what should we be doing in this country about our insurance situation?
You're asking me, so I'll...
Yeah.
You ran for governor once, which is how we all met.
When I ran for governor, I proposed Massachusetts to try to find a way to have a single-payer system where
you think we should have single-payer nationally?
I would prefer it. It's not perfect. I ran Medicare, and it's not perfect, but this nonsense, this opacity, the profits that are taken, the overhead rates. The overhead rate in commercial insurance is about 15% right now. When I was running Medicare, it's 3%.
What does overhead rate mean?
It means for every $100 you spent, you have in premium collections or taxes in Medicare, how much are you spending on health care?
Okay.
And it's called paradoxically, in a Kafka way, the medical loss ratio. So believe it or not, private insurance companies are rewarded by Wall Street for spending less of that $100 on care and more on everything else, advertising, profit, infrastructure. So they were up around 22, 23%, according to scholars here, Steffi Wilhendler and David Himmelstein. When I implemented the Affordable Care Act, the Affordable Care Act mandated that the private insurance companies should go down to no more than 15% overhead. That had to spend at least $85 on care. That's gamed all the time right now. In Medicare, traditional Medicare, the Medicare I have, for every $100 of taxes we collect, $97 gets spent on care. So talk about waste. If Congress were serious about that $880 billion that they need, they'd fix that and not move another $80 billion every single year.
By the way, it's the exact
$880
billion is over 10 years. The number you mentioned is exactly $800+ billion in this waste in the Medicare Advantage program.
Overpayments, and that's the low estimate. The actual range is probably, it could be over $100 billion a year. There's been several editorials about that. I don't know. Well, I do know, but if the Trump administration said, okay, we need the money, $800 billion to give it to rich people, we're going to stop enriching Medicare Advantage plans. They're done. That solves the problem.
You know, one last thing about Medicare, because we've spoken mostly about threats to Medicaid through this proposed $880 billion cut in this budget framework, which, by the way, will not be resolved in this continuing resolution this week. You should know it's being, to use your expression, can's being kicked down the road. What's his face? Musk said in the last 2 days, quote, there's big money fraud is happening in Medicare. And so while the focus has not been on Medicare, the way Donald Trump does what he does is I didn't cut Medicaid. I won't cut Medicare. All I'm doing is protecting you from fraud, abuse, and waste. And it appears Elon Musk is on that train. Before you go, I can't remember her name. Did you see the incredible video of that doctor who's in the middle of surgery and gets a call from United Healthcare, which we all learned. You haven't seen this yet?
No, I will.
This doctor's in the middle of surgery. She gets a call from United Healthcare saying they're denying the coverage of I believe, the surgery. Am I not right about this? That she is currently doing. You should check it out. And it's gone viral, and it is brilliant. And I think it does as good a job talk about messaging, explaining the venality of private insurance companies as anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no excuse for that murder of the executive. That is a travesty. But we did surface this anger in the public, and it is paralleled, Jim, just as you said, by anger in physicians. They are really, really mad, and unfortunately, they're leaving the profession. Some of them are tempted to check out. If we could somehow mobilize that, I won't take this anymore attitude on the part of physicians and patients who are finding themselves up.
What the hell are you doing? Make it happen.
All right. Okay.
I mean, you're a big shot in the medical infrastructure.
Can't get primary care. The primary care physicians aren't paid enough money. They're unionizing at Mass General, at Brigham Mass General, whatever it is now, because they feel so mistreated. It's one big mess, Don.
Oh, okay. Let's clean it up.
We hope you'll come back. Dr. Don Berwick, it's great to see you. We haven't seen you in a while, and thanks so much for spending time
Thank
with
you
us.
very much for being with us. We have been speaking with Dr. Don Berwick, who is the former administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in the Obama administration. And currently a lecturer of healthcare policy at Harvard Medical School and a senior fellow at the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. Thank you very much again, Dr. Berwick. Okay, after a quick break, two more things. Today's a little bit on the lighter side, at least for me. I don't know what you're doing, Jim. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The COVID-19 virus today is not exactly the same one that began the pandemic 5 years ago.
I thought it would undergo some evolution, but the speed at which it's undergone that evolution and the ability it's shown to undergo these big evolutionary jumps is really remarkable.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. A look at how COVID and our immunity to it has changed on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Addison Gallery of American Art, presenting June Leaf, Shooting from the Heart, a retrospective spanning the dynamic artist's entire career, with an opening reception March 29th, on view through July 31st. AddisonGallery.org. And the Simmons Leadership Conference, a one-day event filled with inspiration, skill building, and networking. Thursday, March 20th, in person in Boston and online. InclusiveLeadership.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Library tomorrow, no library Friday because the library's closed. Time for two more things. Marjorie, what's your one more thing?
Well, you know, we all need a little levity these
We do?
days. And one of the ways I get some levity is reading Andy Borowitz reports every day. I get them every day in my news feed. It's Borowitz, Borowitz, BorwitzReports.com.
Substack.
Yes, that's right. He's on Substack. So if you want to check him out, here's just a taste of a couple of the ones that he's written the last couple of days. Okay, we all know that the stock market has had a bad couple of days here under the Trump administration. So here is Andy's latest. And of course, this is satire. It's not true. Washington, the Borowitz Report. In an emergency address from the Oval Office on Monday afternoon, Donald J. Trump commanded the American people not to look at their 401 accounts. And then he quotes Donald Trump, anyone caught checking their 409s, whoops, it's not the 409s, it's the 401. Anybody checking their 401k account can and will be deported, the president warned. He asserted that he was issuing this order, quote, for your own good. Quote, Elon says there's a virus in the stock market, and if you check your stocks, it will spread to your body. He claimed nothing bad is happening on Wall Street. Nonetheless, and he said the American people, in the event of a stock market crash, he said he would fix it with his Sharpie.
By the way, it's down 636 points
Okay,
today.
and just one more.
Making
this
his
is just
point
one more to
yours.
give you a little
Take
taste
it
of
away.
Andy Borowitz. Okay, this one I posted a couple of days ago. Remember these stories, the lies about Haitians eating dogs and cats out there in Springfield,
Ohio,
Illinois?
sure.
Okay, and of course he's very anti-trans, the president, even though he used to be kind of pro-trans. Okay, Borowitz Report. In one of the more ominous moments from his speech to Congress on Tuesday night, Donald J. Trump blamed a surge in transgender mice on, quote, Haitians eating all the cats. Said Trump, for 4 years, mice swarmed over the border looking for sex change operations that sleepy Joe Biden would pay for. These mice had nothing to fear because they knew that all the cats had been eaten by the Haitians. Vowing to usher in what he called a golden age for cats, Donald Trump vowed to use billions in tariff revenue to establish a strategic cat reserve. And he spent the rest of his speech listing his second-term accomplishments, boasting, I have already caused more damage than all other American presidents put together. So that's just a taste of the Borowitz Report. You can get it on Substack, and it lifts your spirit. He's a riot.
Okay, so the good news is my one more thing wasn't very good today, and Marjorie took up enough time that I don't have to do it. So, however,
it was good.
No, it's not that good. Now we have only a minute left. I don't know, randomly. Is there anybody in the audience who turned 50 years old today? Anybody? Where? Okay, here's an anonymous text. Jim and Marjorie, My good friend Gotti. Is that you, Gotti? Hello, Gotti. Happy birthday. He's turning 50 today. He's in your audience at the library, parentheses. He got tickets for his birthday, Marjorie, so he's entitled to be here. I love that he chose to mark this milestone by spending it with you. Is there any chance you can give this old man, true GBH fan, a shout out? The answer is no, we cannot. Happy birthday, Gotti. It's great to have you here. We appreciate it.
Okay. I was all ready for your
I'll do it tomorrow.
I won't reveal
It's not that
what
good.
it
I'll
is
make
then.
it better tomorrow.
Hooters. Shh.
Thank
Hooters
you.
is having problems.
It's gone bankrupt.
Jim is really upset.
I am not upset.
He doesn't want to go to see
I am not
the
upset.
industrials.
I am not upset.
On. Okay. After the news, after the 1 o'clock news, we're going to talk to Boston Globe's business columnist Shirley Young. We're going to talk to her about the expanded mayor's race, Michelle Wu's performance in Washington, D.C., and fears about the stock market kind of in trouble, and Trump not ruling out a recession. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
GBH is your home for quality local news and conversations that matter to you. Listener support is essential to providing the critical resources needed to cover the issues of the day with accuracy and accountability. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and the University of Massachusetts Amherst. United around a vision for public access to revolutionary education, UMass Amherst gives students the opportunity to seek solutions to the challenges of today. Learn more at umass.edu. And Emerson Colonial Theater, with a Broadway production of Jason Robert Brown and Alfred Urry's musical Parade, coming to Boston for 2 weeks, this March 11th through March 23rd. Tickets at emersoncolonialtheater.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Young joins us with reaction to Mayor Wu's testimony in Congress last week. In a recent piece, Shirley called it formidable and fearless. We'll also dive into what it means for local businesses that the Small Business Administration is closing its Boston office over Wu's immigration policies. And of course, we'll ask Shirley to handicap the expanding race for mayor.
I'm Marjorie Egan. I had to endure 2 daylight savings segments yesterday. Now it's my turn to exert executive power over this show, finally. So, chicken coops and you. There's a lot of anxiety right now about the state of the economy, what the rising cost of eggs is doing for the average consumer. Are backyard chickens a path to financial security or a good way to fuel the next bird flu pandemic? And are those supposedly orange-yolked eggs really all they're cracked up to be? That's next in the third hour of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. House Speaker Mike Johnson says, quote, "We'll have the votes," telling reporters in the Capitol today that the GOP can pass a short-term measure known as a continuing resolution that keeps federal agencies funded through September. But Democrats, Johnson says, should be on board.
Democrats ought to do the responsible thing, follow their own advice in every previous scenario, and keep the government open.
Some Republicans have also said they're not in favor. Congress has until Friday to avoid a partial government shutdown during the first 100 days of President Trump's term. Earlier this week, Trump advisor and tech billionaire Elon Musk accused hackers in Ukraine of launching a cyber attack against his social media platform X. But as NPR's Jenna McLaughlin tells us, experts have found no evidence for that claim.
Social media site X.com, previously known as Twitter, was knocked offline for several hours Monday afternoon. Musk said he was, quote, tracing the attack and found it was coming from what he described as the Ukraine area. While data confirmed X.com experienced an outage, cybersecurity experts found no evidence linking Ukraine to the disruption. Distributed denial of service attacks are, by nature, launched from a vast number of compromised devices around the globe, making up what's called a botnet. Determining who operates a botnet can be challenging. The group claiming responsibility for the attack goes by the name Dark Storm Team. Israeli cybersecurity firm Check Point has identified them as a pro-Palestinian hacking group. Jen McLaughlin, NPR News.
Greenlanders are going to the polls to choose a new parliament in an election that probably wouldn't be making international headlines if President Donald Trump had not said he wants the semi-autonomous Danish territory to become part of the United States. Terry Schultz reports the island's leaders have repeatedly told Trump Greenlanders do not want to be Americans.
Residents of Greenland, the world's largest island, will elect 31 lawmakers to represent the some 56,000 people who live there. Whether Greenland should become independent from Denmark is not on the ballot, but this new legislature is expected to deal with that question, which has been a debate for many years, with public opinion now favoring it. The status of the mineral-rich island has gained an international spotlight, with President Trump repeatedly saying he wants to seize it and refusing to rule out military force to do that. The U.S. already has a military base on the island. In the final debate between leaders of the parties currently holding seats in Parliament, all five said they do not trust Trump. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz.
U.S. stocks are sharply lower this hour. The Dow is now down 664 points, or more than 1.5% at 41,246. The S&P down 1%. The Nasdaq is down nearly 1%. It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. As climate changes make wildfires more common, new research from Harvard and the American Cancer Society suggests fires pose a particular risk to cancer patients. The study out today finds patients recovering from lung cancer surgery were kept in the hospital longer when their hospital was in a county dealing with an ongoing wildfire. Dr. Amruta Norsirama with Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health says that could be because the wildfires are affecting patients' health or because doctors are keeping patients longer. And she says hospitals need standardized guidance.
Using the lessons that we know from the places that have already started experiencing these types of wildfires can be informative to develop policies and try to help patients in places like Massachusetts, which may start to see some similar exposures.
Norisama says longer patient stays can mean added costs and can lead to issues like hospital-acquired infections. The historic Longfellow House on Brattle Street in Cambridge has been hit by President Trump's federal funding cuts. The officials say the House's credit card limit had been reduced to $1 by the Trump administration. And they only found out about it when the Longfellow House Washington headquarters National Historic Site tried to pay their annual dues of $110 to the Harvard Square Business Association last week. Their credit card payment was denied. Longfellow House is a mansion that was built in 1759. It was George Washington's first long-term headquarters during the American Revolution. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Hey, Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A few programming notes. We've got a double header tomorrow. We're going to have Governor Healy's going to be with us from 11 to 12, taking our questions and yours. And then one of the most popular men in Massachusetts, NBTA General Manager Phil Eng, is going to be here at 1 o'clock. Same deal, taking our questions and yours. And on Thursday, we're going to talk to John Santiago. He's the Massachusetts Secretary of Veterans Affairs, about slashing jobs at the Veterans Administration. We will not be back here on Friday because the library is closed. Hello again, Jim.
Let me just say, for also John Santiago, who's was a former state rep, is both a doctor and a veteran, so he brings lots of relevant perspectives. We're joined now by Shirley Leung, Boston Globe business columnist, host of the Great Say More podcast, and a BPR regular. Hello, Shirley Leung.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hello, Shirley Leung. So we talked to Mayor Wu earlier today. Now we have Josh Kraft, who already declared that he was going to challenge her for mayor, and now we have a new challenger, Tom O'Brien. What do we know?
Well, Tom hasn't officially jumped into the race yet, but he is. I broke a story yesterday saying he is.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He is weighing whether to join the race, and he has been thinking about it for months. He's a developer, well-known developer. You guys had him on the show with his brother Bill.
We did.
Right?
Yeah, the coach of Boston College football.
And his other brother, who's a former state senator, who's a big energy officer now.
So Tom is one of the most prolific developers in the region. He built North Point in Cambridge, Boston Landing in Brighton. He's doing the big redevelopment of Suffolk Downs on the Revere Boston line. He's doing the redevelopment of Government Center as well. He also spent about 5 years as the head, 5 years at the what was then called the Boston Redevelopment Authority. It's the city planning agency, and he spent 2 years as the director under Tom Menino. So he's very well known in business and civic circles, and as a developer, he wants to jump into the race because he's not building much stuff, and he disagrees with a lot of Wu's policies. Thinks that it's making construction too expensive, housing too expensive. He's hearing concerns about rising property taxes among residents, and of course, Mayor Wu tried to raise taxes on commercial property owners. So, it says a lot.
Which I think he supported, from what we understood, which was interesting, by the way, but I believe Tom O'Brien supported.
So it's interesting that one of the things that I'm thinking about is what would make him think about this race, or even talk about challenging Mayor Wu. A lot of times, people in the business community, they back the incumbent mayor, especially people like developers, because they need something from City Hall. They need actually approvals for their projects. So you don't want to be on the wrong side of the mayor. And so if he runs and loses, even just saying he might challenge her, and she wins. I'm not sure of Tom O'Brien and HY Investments, the firm he founded. I'm not sure how much work they'll get done in
What do you
Boston.
think it says about his perspective on the Kraft campaign?
Yes,
that O'Brien's contemplating getting involved in this thing.
My sense is that he's been thinking about this for months, and we've known for a long time, almost a year now, that Josh Kraft would jump into the race. And I think what he wanted to do is, let's see how Josh Kraft does. Let's see what kind of candidate he is, because Kraft is also a first-time candidate.
Right.
Tom O'Brien would be also a first-time candidate. Let's see how he does. And if he comes out of the gate, and I think Josh Kraft did have a pretty good start. But I think the more Tom O'Brien saw of Kraft, he thought, I'm not sure if he can beat Wu. And after last week, Wu goes to Washington. Yeah. She testifies before Congress. She really represented Boston well. And so I think there was a moment, a lot of people in town were like, I don't know if Josh Kraft has a chance.
Frankly, I don't mean to go overboard here, but she did something I've seen nobody else manage to do in all those hearings I've watched. It was really quite a brilliant performance.
Right. She not only survived the hearing, because we saw what happened to Claudine Gay, the Harvard president, and also the University of Pennsylvania president. They go before a congressional hearing and they lose their jobs not that long after. And we were all very nervous, or at least I was very nervous. We're all nervous for her. Yep. And she prepared really well. And I think she went in, and this came up on my podcast with my colleague Jim Punzagara, who's in our DC bureau. And I don't think this made the podcast, but when we were recording it, and Jim was in the room in DC, and so he tells this story. There were 3 other mayors, who went before Congress as well, including the New York mayor Eric Adams. And I think he's a former cop, right?
Yeah, he is.
He's a big guy. He dresses really nicely. A bravado, and so
he was almost a felon, but then he wasn't a felon.
Right. Yeah. So he walks into the hearing room like a half an hour before it starts, and he comes in, and there's a media scrum, and he gives a few remarks, and he cuts it short, and it's just like, I just need to go and prepare. I need to mentally prepare for this hearing, hours-long hearing. So he goes away, and as Jim was saying, I don't know if he had to go meditate. I don't know what was going on with him. And then 10 minutes before the meeting comes in, Wu waltz in. She's in her beautiful, cobalt blue dress. She's got a little mirror perched on her shoulder, and she's just so calm and collected. And then I think at one point she sits down at the hearing table and she nurses the baby before the hearing starts. And so Jim said from the very beginning she set the tone of, I'm in control, I'm confident, I've got this, and she did, and he felt that she did much better than the three other mayors.
Can I say two things about the mayor's race, and then we'll move on? One, I don't think anybody disagrees that she did, no matter who you are, that she did extraordinarily well. Josh Kraft, to his credit, was quoted somewhere saying she did the city proud or some such thing, which is the right thing to say. However, it is March.
It's March.
I don't
it's a
think
long way
people
away.
in September in the preliminary are going to say, boy, she was fabulous in front of Congress. How my property taxes doing? How safe is Boston?
Yeah.
What's with the bike lanes, et cetera? That's number one. Number two,
well, let me just say something out there. As you're a man, Jim, and you've never nursed a baby.
I don't
and you
think
certainly
I have.
never had to nurse a baby in a dirty stall that smelled and stunk, because that's the only place you could nurse a baby at a workplace. That was a big deal, I think, to women who have nursed babies, because it was saying, this is on the floor of Congress in front of all these powerful people. Look at this woman.
I think it's huge. The question is,
that.
well, I don't know. I mean, women were not going to forget Dobbs' overturning of Roe v. Wade. And what happened on election day?
They all voted for protecting abortion rights. Well, they all voted for abortion rights.
How about women as a whole?
But the ticket was...
How about women?
White women.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, they're
Jim,
women.
Women of color voted differently.
Go ahead.
Jim, I think you're right. I think the September primary, November elections, a long time away, and people's memories are short, and so we'll see. But you're gonna think she's gonna keep this. She's going to keep riding this victory lap. I mean,
well, she's also relentless.
It will show up in her ads.
Of course it will. But there's one other thing that troubles me about. And by the way, my attitude is democracy is always better when there are contests. However, the thing that troubles me about two high-profile business people, and there's a community activist who announced yesterday too, I don't mean to belittle his candidacy, is I fear that most of us in the press are going to cover the fight between the two business guys. Who's going to make it onto the final ballot to run against Wu? I thought it was really healthy to have one person who's a high-profile person, not as high-profile as the mayor, so it's head-to-head kind of thing for 6 months till September, and I don't think it's going to be that as much.
No, I mean, because I think Kraft and Tom O'Brien, if he jumps in, I mean, they have a common enemy in Wu, and it may take two men, two white men with very similar kind of backgrounds or at least support bases.
O'Brien's not from a wealthy family.
Right, not from
made
wealthy,
a lot of money.
But running in the business kind of civic nonprofit circles, it may take the two of them to take on. I can see the two of them taking on Wu's record. And it might take two people to kind of weaken Wu.
So we're talking to Shirley Leung. Let's talk about the governor. She's going to be here tomorrow. I think this is great. I don't know enough about it. Maybe you're going to say it's not so great. Here's sound from a promotional clip that Governor Healy pitching new resources for laid-off federal workers. It's at mass.gov/fed, F-E-D, Fed Up. Here she is.
If you're a federal worker who just got let go, or if you're just fed up with the federal government, we've got some news for you. We just launched a website to help workers impacted by recent cuts in Washington. You can search for jobs with our state agencies and local government. Or if you think you're ready for a career change, you can learn how to break into industries like life sciences, technology, and advanced manufacturing. We'll help you with your resume. You can get interview tips. You can talk to someone about what your next steps should be. Look, we're here to support you because we need you. We need your skills, your knowledge, and your purpose.
I don't know anything about the details. The content is great. The concept is great. Mass.gov/FedUp. Is this the real? Have you looked at this thing? Is this the real deal?
I saw Governor Healy. I think I saw her on Instagram promoting this, and I thought this was brilliant. And I actually went to check out the website. I mean, there are a lot of federal workers in Massachusetts. I think more than 46,000. And I think the state website has more than 160,000 job postings. We know how hard it is to hire. So I think this is actually brilliant.
Great.
I think other states are doing the same thing too, trying to recruit federal workers who have either been laid off or as Healy says, fed up. I think and I know that, I have neighbors who work at the federal government, and it's very hard time to be at the federal government now. So I'm glad that Healy's putting something out there to give people an option.
We're talking to Shirley Leon.
What do you hear in the business community about what's going on? We talked about the market not doing particularly well. We talked about Trump not ruling out.
Not doing particularly well.
Okay, it hasn't been this bad since 2022 or something.
Yeah, the markets are
bad.
really rattled. Yes.
Yeah, and Trump not ruling out a recession. Actually, we have a clip of him talking with Fox's Maria Bartiromo. May as well play that, downplaying the idea of a possible recession. Excuse me.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us.
There are always periods of your retirement disappearing. There are always periods of, it's down 643 points right now.
And tariffs are making people, the on again, off again tariffs are making people very, very nervous. So what are you hearing from people?
It's been a long time since, we're really concerned about a recession. And now we're seeing the stock market, react to it. Trump is definitely creating a lot of chaos, creating a lot of uncertainty, which business leaders hate.
Right.
And so you're hearing a lot of companies are, do we hold off on spending? Do we hold off on hiring? We don't know what the picture looks like. And if you think about it, the past 2 or 3 years, or actually since 2020, everybody's been bracing for the recession. I mean, after the shutdown and it came, and after the recovery, everyone thought we're definitely going to have a recession.
About the soft landing. Could we have a soft
landing?
Right,
and we did have a soft landing. And so, but now I feel like, we might not have a soft landing. The recession could come. You're starting to see hiring, unemployment tick up, and now because of this, what Trump is doing with tariffs and other policies, and what that interview revealed is that he's willing to risk a recession for the long-term, kind of short-term pain for long-term gain.
What is the long-term gain?
I mean, I guess eventually that. I guess if the other countries would fold and we would have a more equitable trade system, So
and that there'd be huge investment theoretically in
the US.
Plants and things in the U.S., which is not a lot of suffering on the way. There's another reporter in town who wants to remain unnamed texted me knowing you were coming on and said there's a piece on Market Watch saying Trump wants a recession. And I don't know why. And there are two pieces of evidence that I think they use. I know others have. One, that incredible statement to Bartiromo, knowing what it's going to impact it's going to have on the markets. And two, this morning he doubles the tariffs on aluminum and steel with Canada from 25% to 50%. And it seems. There are two, and one, he wants a recession, argues this individual. I'm sorry, I don't know who it is. I have to believe, I know nothing about the economy, so I want to be clear to begin with. I think he has no idea what he's doing. And I mean, when you almost every day have tariffs, rescind the tariffs, pause the tariffs, start the tariffs, he's enamored of two things, it seems. He said tariffs is his favorite word. He said that repeatedly. And secondly, he's another one of those people, we know people like this, who don't want to ever admit they're wrong about anything. So you double down on a horrible idea rather than admit that you took the wrong course. I mean, what is the agenda here?
I mean, you would think he's got a lot of economic advisors around him. He's got a lot of people with business experience. You'd think they would rein him in, but I do.
Nobody reins him in.
But I do think there is something here by design. And, during Trump 1, it seemed like he reacted. If the stock market went down, he would react and he would stop the tariffs. But this time, I don't know. I feel like he's going to let it ride. I mean, the fact that he didn't shoot down the concept that we would be in recession. I mean, that's why
his Secretary of Treasury
right.
the same day said there will not be a recession, right. And then he just goes and does what he does.
He's not running again, and
right.
he's got this thing about bringing back this manufacturing. But again, I don't know nothing about the economy either. But just people I read say, well, the economy is not really going to be in manufacturing anymore. It's going to be in high tech. It's going to be digital. It's going to be green energy, all these things that he's kind of opposed to. Right. Well, he's not opposed to high tech, obviously, but this manufacturing is kind of a 1950s pipe dream he's got.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think part of what's happening this time around is the influence of Elon Musk. And if you think about Elon Musk, he has a real high tolerance for not, running a tech company or running companies that don't make money for a long time, or, whether it's buying Twitter at seemingly an insane price, but knowing that at some point it's going to pay off. Same thing with his SpaceX. I'm going to send ships to, to the moon, to Mars, but there'll be a lot of failure along the way. But eventually, we'll be successful. And it seems like Trump is taking a page from that playbook.
By the way,
we should point out,
John
Gruber.
Go ahead.
Yeah, John Gruber, MIT economist, is going to join us on Thursday, and he's going to talk about exactly this: whether Trump is engineering a recession. So that'll be a great discussion.
But the one thing you can't disagree on, Trump would disagree. They don't give a damn about, this notion there will be a little disturbance was his line, there might be a recession. The basic message is, I'm worth a few $1 billion, so I can deal with a tough months, 6 months, a year. But average people, including almost all the people who voted for Trump, this working class piece of his constituency, he is totally screwing.
Well, those are the people, a lot of them that are on Medicaid, too. I mean, people that are working full time but still aren't making enough money that they still qualify for Medicaid in a lot of these red states. So that's the other thing that seems like kind of a conundrum as well, if they really are serious about doing a number on Medicaid. Yeah.
In any case, we're talking to Shirley Long. Shirley, before you go, there's a piece one of your colleagues wrote about how difficult it is, despite the best intentions of some, to boycott places like Target, which that minister out of Atlanta is arguing a 40-day thing during Lent. Boycott Amazon for obvious reasons, Bezos and what he's done to the Washington Post, not to mention. But there was a very practical piece written saying it's not just ideology. For a lot of people, it's hard not to use those. They're busy, they may be disabled, they may live in a neighborhood where they want to go to a one-stop like a Target, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, some of these companies like Amazon, I mean, they almost make you, you've built your entire household purchasing around Amazon, around Prime. I know that's the issue in my household. I mean, my husband has the Amazon Prime account. He, orders a lot of things through Amazon. Meanwhile, me, I've stopped going to Target. I've stopped going to Walmart. Since the end of January, and I'm proudly able to do that.
Good for you.
But my husband is still shopping at Amazon, and so you win some, you lose some. I have spent more at Costco though. They've.
I was there Saturday. One of the most fun 2 hours I've had. It was fun.
You shouldn't admit that, Jim.
No, it was not like.
Tell us what was fun about it.
Well, the most fun was ending with each of the four of us, both of my kids and one of their husband. Well, one has a husband. The four of us eating a $1.50 hot dog with a soda. I mean, it doesn't get much better than
what
that.
What about the $4.99
So
chicken?
wait a minute.
Oh my
Hold
God!
on.
Anyone ever bought the $4.99 chicken? It's like the size of a pig. I mean, it is.
So your idea of a family outing was everybody get in the car, let's go to Costco and have a $1.50 hot dog.
And load up.
Unlimited soda, right?
What?
Unlimited soda.
Unlimited soda.
So I have a thing with my Costco. It's like I order a pizza.
Pizza's not horrible.
I first go and order my pizza for $10.99, and then I shop. And then
by the time you get back,
by the time I check out, I've got a big pizza to go, and I can take it home to my kids for lunch.
By the way, Costco's got everything. Plus, they treat their workers well. They have not retreated from DEI. And speaking of that, whoever of your colleagues wrote that piece about how hard it is to quit Amazon, cited something I'd never heard of. It's an app called Goods Unite Us.
Yes.
Do you know what it is?
I was going to download. This is my colleague Dana Gerber wrote the story.
Gerber, right.
Yeah.
And it's essentially an app that you can type in any company, and it tells you what political contributions the executives the companies are making. If you're on the Trump side of the ledger and you think the executives are too liberal, you might want to not shop there. And if you're on the sane side of the ledger and you don't want somebody who's supporting Donald Trump, you can shop. I think it's a great service. Goods Unite Us is the
I'm going to check it out.
Is the app, is the deal there. So good for your husband, not so good. Good for you and not so good for your husband. So before you, is there a podcast, a new podcast?
Yes, I'm just trying to think. Okay, so
She has no idea what it is.
we actually just recorded a podcast today with Ian Koss.
Oh.
About his
yes.
8-part
Scratch and Win.
Scratch and Win. It's a great series.
It's a great podcast.
So,
He did a great job.
Yeah.
And that and The Big Dig, it's wonderful.
Yeah, so he was just in the studio today before I got here at the Globe. We were recording a podcast that's going to be released not this week, but the following week, about Scratch and Win. We also had Esme Jimenez on, Globe reporter, because she also did a big investigation on mass lottery and how the money is just the money, the profit, I guess, and the way it's distributed and how it's distributed quite
It's Robin Hood in reverse.
That's
Collection and distribution.
Jim's big cause.
It is
exactly.
my big
People in
cause.
Chelsea spending a ton of money and they're not winning the money back.
And I think this week's podcast is with Jim Dow, and it's on China.
Oh,
so.
the editorial page editor of
Yes,
the Globe. Oh,
yes.
great. Now, by the way, before you go, since you're a mother of two and you know about these things, I don't know if I should ask you. I was talking to this woman the other day who has a couple of kids, and her kids one of the kids was in a basketball tournament. And I was talking to the woman, and the woman said to me, I don't want to name her, and she said, I'm really conflicted. Do I want my kid to win? So the season, it was just last week.
The
by the way.
playoffs.
The
It's
playoffs.
the playoffs right now.
Oh, you understand this kind of woman.
It's basketball playoff season right now.
So, and this woman was basically saying, I don't know if I want my kid to win because it means I got to go to more games. If I want him to lose. Can you relate to that kind of person, Shirley?
I can. So
do you know that person?
I do.
Who
and I
is
know
it?
many of these people.
It would be you. Exactly.
So we won one playoff round. We
Yeah.
lost the others. Our season, sadly, in air quotes, is
And when does
over.
it start again?
Well, he has another AAU team, starts March 17th.
So you got
Oh
1
my
week off.
God!
1 week
One
off.
week
1 week
Is
off.
that basketball too, or is that baseball?
Basketball.
They
basketball.
don't do AAU baseball, do they? I don't
They
think
do
so.
club baseball.
Club
They
baseball.
do all kinds of.
Look at this woman here.
I'm embarrassed. It's okay. I'm not the only. I'm sure if you ever had a call-in,
Yeah.
do you want?
We should do that
Do you
with
want your
you.
kids?
should do a
you
call
want,
out.
Do you want your kids to win
Yeah.
the playoffs or not?
We're going to do
And
that.
you know what the other
Jamie,
dilemma is?
Have her
If
be
your-
part of this discussion.
If your
Let's
kid,
do this.
if your kids play baseball and the game is going on forever,
Oh, that's right.
I mean, do you want someone to strike out so you just go home?
That's
'Cause
right.
It's like
See,
9
same
o'clock?
thing.
Or if you're watching a soccer game and you've been chatting with the other moms and your kid scores a goal, do you lie and say you saw the goal, or do you tell the truth and say I was too busy gossiping, sweetheart?
Did you lie? You told me.
You lie.
Did
You have to lie. You gotta lie.
I don't remember.
In other words,
what
you
I
lied.
did.
Okay.
You
I
have
don't
to
remember
lie.
what I did.
You have to lie.
Her kid was a prolific scorer too.
She was a good little soccer
Well, that's
player.
why she didn't have to watch all the time.
That's right. That's right. It takes so long for somebody to get a goal. You could be into an intense conversation, and all of a sudden you turn away, and
It's just a half a second.
half
You
a
just
second,
miss
half
it
a
just
second.
Like that.
Yeah,
I get it.
that would be
I
a
get
good
it.
call-in show because
I like it.
there is that mixed thing, right? There is
Right.
that mixed thing.
Shirley, good to see you. Shirley Young, Boston Globe. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks for
very
having
much,
me.
Shirley. Okay, we've been speaking with Shirley Young, Boston Globe business columnist and hardworking AAU mom with those kids playing basketball. She's host of the Same Word podcast, which is a great podcast available wherever you get your podcast. Shirley, thank you very, very much. Okay, coming up after a quick break, Jim will have to pay the price for forcing me to talk about daylight saving
Here we
time
go, I know.
twice. The next segment is my choice, sort of. Backyard chicken coops. With the price of eggs, Jim, they're delight for some and nightmare for others. But with the egg industry in such a tizzy, are you thinking about maybe opening a chicken coop in your backyard? Call or text next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The COVID-19 virus today is not exactly the same one that began the pandemic 5 years ago.
I thought it would undergo some evolution, but the speed at which it's undergone that evolution and the ability it's shown to undergo these big evolutionary jumps is really remarkable.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. A look at how COVID and our immunity to it has changed on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com. And Revision Energy, a solar company and a Mitsubishi Electric heating and air conditioning contractor, committed to helping customers lower their environmental impact. Offering all-electric heat pump systems from Mitsubishi Electric. RevisionEnergy.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Live from the library. Did I say that already? I did. Back at the BPL tomorrow, 11 to 12 is Ask the Governor. She'll be here for an hour. Maura Healey. And at 1 o'clock, it's Ask the MBTA General Manager. Phil Lang will join us, take your questions too. Thursday, Massachusetts Secretary of Veterans Services, John Santiago. And as we've said repeatedly, don't come on Friday because we will not be here and the library will not be open. So, by the way, a lot of you are going to think, if you're faithful listeners to the show, we did this topic the other day. We did not. We were talking about something else, and then Marjorie got off on a tangent. And so we sort of touched on this, but we're going to dig deep today.
Because we have a lot of chicken coop listeners.
We apparently do, sadly. In times of hardship, the American people have historically stepped up. During the World Wars, people started victory gardens to feed their communities, prevent shortages, for example. Today, it seems impossible to get anyone to do anything meaningful, like giving up shopping, as we just discussed, at Amazon, or selling their Muskmobile gym, except in one area that really matters to everyone, that would be eggs. The industry's in a tizzy. Sticker shock as the price of eggs has tripled in some markets. And by the way, it is not just bird flu. As we've learned, it's also exploitation by some of these egg companies. But in any case, we talked about this in passing the other day during our COVID anniversary segment. I have no idea how this came up. But in any case, Marjorie brought it up. But anyway, the question today is, have you bought into the idea of backyard chickens? Extolling the virtues of the egg-laying hen to all your friends and neighbors, or maybe you live next door to a chicken coop owning neighbor and have a different story to tell about the clucking and the cooing. We want to hear from you. I believe that is a chicken. At 877-301-8097. Can I state my position on this?
We have another birthday in the audience, too.
We do? Who?
Yes, we do. We have a mom whose birthday is celebrating her 82nd birthday.
Whoa, who's this?
She's in the audience today.
Where are you?
There we go.
Hey there, happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming down and happy birthday.
Do we know this person's name? Or we
don't know. No one told me her name.
Can you tell somebody your name? What is it? Ann, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
We're thrilled to have you. Go talk to Gotti over there. He's standing up. Okay, in any case, let me tell you who encapsulates exactly how I feel. Callie did one of her commentaries on this thing. I want to quote her. I embrace farm to table, as do I. The as do I is my addition. But in general, I prefer my farm to be farther away from my table, which is exactly how I feel. The notion of having a chicken farm, one in my backyard, is abhorrent. And the notion of my next door neighbor having a smelly chicken farm or chicken coop in the backyard is abhorrent. And do you know, nobody saves money on this.
No.
The coops can cost as much as $2,000.
Yeah.
You have to buy the birds. You have to feed the birds. Did you know that for the most part, in the coldest months, some of them at least don't lay that many eggs at all?
For November to March.
Yeah, so what is the point?
And then when you get your first batch, this person from the Atlantic did this whole long story about it. As you say, you have to get the sturdy cedar coop to protect the hens from the raccoons and the predators. Chickens themselves, she said, cost $73. I wasn't sure if that means all of them or a piece, plus $36 for shipping. Then she spends $150 for chick food and a heating plate to warm the birds until they're grown enough to move outside. Then she bought the mealworm treats to sort of ingratiate herself with the birds. And then she had to wait 7 months to get her first egg. And then she also talked about how sometimes the moms will sit on top of the eggs so you can't get them because they're very hostile towards you, and they will hide the eggs around the
Where do they hide them?
I don't know, but she talks about how they will sometimes hide the eggs so you can't get them under shrubs. They hide them under shrubs, and she wouldn't find the eggs until days or a week later when there were too many. They were too old, so she didn't. Yeah. And then somebody, Jeffrey from Andover, just texted to say he had a chicken coop, and he says he wants to warn people there's an emotional price. It's inevitable that a predator will get one of your hens. Each year we would lose 1 or 2, but last week it was catastrophic. They lost 4 in 3 days. Horrible.
Oh.
Horrible. So I guess the chicken coops aren't always able to keep the predators out, although I do have a friend, we have a mutual friend, who's got the Taj Mahal of chicken coops over at her house in Dedham, and I don't think anything could get in there.
Well, let me tell you something. If I lived in Dedham, I'd probably have chicken coops too. I mean, but no disrespect to Dedham,
Listen
of course,
to
because
that.
I love
Listen
Dedham.
To that. Okay.
Love driving
Jim
through
is
Dedham.
from, of course, the People's Republic
Okay,
of
fine.
Cambridge.
In any case,
okay,
let's talk chicken
He
coops.
doesn't know where Dedham is.
And by the way, I do not know where Dedham is. So can we have some, we particularly like to hear from whoever's screening the calls, since neither Marjorie nor I are totally enamored of the notion of having a chicken coop in the backyard. Whenever we have people who want to make the case, this has changed the life, it's great, it's not just about the eggs. What's the name of Sai's book again? What the Chicken Knows. What the Chicken Knows. She loves chickens, so some of you, I assume, love chickens. So make your case, and we will do our best to be respectful, polite, and all those kind of things.
Our pest guy says, with chickens come rats, so no thank you.
Is that true?
I don't know.
Whoops.
That could be from the mealworm treats. You know, it's like bird feeders can attract rats because the birds, don't always get all the food, and then it falls down below the bird feeder, and the rats come and eat it.
That's horrible.
Yeah, a lot of pest guys have said, don't get a bird feeder
Who's a
because of
pest
that.
guy? Who are you talking
The
about?
guys that come if you have problems
when did you talk to them?
Oh, when we had a rat in the house. He said the rats...
You had a rat?
I told you that. The rat marched across my kitchen.
Oh, you did tell me that.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was huge. It
And
was
why
like
didn't
a
you move
20-pound
again?
rat.
What was the reason?
We moved for the night. Let me tell you, we get out of there really quickly. The rat was bigger than my dog. 877-301-8970. How do you feel about chicken coops? If you are worried about the price of eggs, I guess it's not going to help you about the price of eggs, but maybe you just want to have chickens in your backyard. Mary from Waltham, what do you think, Mary?
Hello, Mary in Waltham.
Hi.
Hi.
I've had chickens for over a decade.
Wow.
I love having them, but you have to get into it. They're animals that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
There's a whole learning curve on how to keep predators away from them, what they need to eat, if they get sick, all that stuff. And they do attract rats. I've had rats break into the coop and bite them.
Oh.
So what's the good part? Wait, what's the good part so far?
I'm looking at them right now, and they're adorable. They're like living lawn ornaments. They're running around.
Oh.
And I get like 4 eggs a day, and I give them to my neighbors and my friends, and I do a lot of baking, and they're fresh as anything.
Yeah, you got to read the book, What the Chicken Knows, by our buddy Cy Montgomery, who comes in and visits us all the time.
No, there's a better one.
Which is
it? Chicken keeping for dummies.
Okay.
One of those dummies books.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there is nothing better than a Cy Montgomery
This
book.
isn't about keeping the chickens. It's about
chickens.
your relationship with the chickens.
And how
they have different names and how they love you and you love them.
Yeah,
And
I went to that. I got her autographed book.
Oh,
good. There in Somerville.
Yep. Oh.
So
we were there too. I don't know if you remember that, Mary. We were the MCs.
We were there. Do you remember us, Mary?
I know, Mary. You don't remember us?
We were on the stage.
Was the tall guy and the other woman?
That was my birthday.
It was? Yeah, we weren't there.
Yeah.
We were there. Now, Mary, before you go, wait.
Chicken.
What's your name? Cy says the chickens can recognize, I forget the number, X
faces.
number of faces.
Yeah.
Do your chickens
they
recognize
do.
you?
Of course. If I drive in the driveway, which has a fence between the yard and the driveway, they come running to the fence and wait for me. They recognize me.
Do you ever hear about owning a dog or not? What?
I had a dog, but
No.
he passed away, and I didn't
Sorry.
replace him because a dog will attack chickens unless you train him. And he was trained not to attack the chickens.
fine.
He attacked them.
Now,
Okay, Mary, that was an
one of our
excellent-
staff had a
Oh,
great
we're not
point.
done yet?
Yes, that the chickens recognize you, and you we assume recognize your chickens, but you didn't recognize me and Jim on the stage.
Apparently
sitting next
not.
to Cy
Well,
Montgomery.
Cy is
that
a
right, Mary?
captivating performer. Mary, we're thrilled to not meet you at the. We would wish we had met you in Somerville. Mary, that was a very compelling case. Now, what is it that she says she likes having them run around. They're really cute.
Yeah.
And they greet her.
They
but
greet
they
her.
have rats.
Rats.
You have to worry about food. How do
Yeah.
you know when a chicken is sick? She said you have to tend to them when they're sick. How do you know if a chicken is sick?
Jim, I have no idea.
Does anybody know how you know when a chicken is sick here? Anybody? No. Clueless. Okay, fine. If anybody knows how to tell when a chicken is sick, Can you put them at the top of the list so they can let us know?
Jane Brighton has sent a text.
What does he
It's
say?
kind of off topic, but he wants to know the library's closed on Friday. So he says, how can we support the Boston Public Library? There will be financial losses due to the lost BPR ticket sales on Friday. Is there a GoFundMe
That's really
site?
fun.
Ha, ha, ha.
Not really.
By the way, you don't need any tickets
Oh, you
here.
don't?
No reservations.
Okay,
no,
fine.
you just show up and stay for as little as long as you like.
Okay, Chris in North Reading, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey guys, how you doing? Long time listener, first time caller.
We're thrilled, actually. Thank you.
I've had chickens for 10 years up here in North Reading.
Wow.
Never had any issues with rats or fox or coyotes or anything. Biggest issue I have is my pets. So one of my dogs, new puppy, 6 months old, just grabbed one and ripped its head off.
Oh, well, other than that, it's been a pleasure.
Other than that, it's been a pleasure. So I'm on my way to the vet right now to make sure she doesn't need to get any shots, being a puppy and all. But we get a dozen eggs a day.
Wait a second.
We love them.
It just ripped the head of the chicken off today?
Literally 10 minutes ago, and I got in the car to start driving to the vet, and I heard the radio on. And I said,
Hold
maybe I
on.
should call in today.
Oh, Chris, you know you always hear the stories about how when the chickens or the hens get beheaded, they keep running around.
They do.
Did the
They
chicken
run and run and run.
with no head?
100% true. Yep. So the chicken, the head got ripped off, unfortunately.
Yeah, we heard
and the
that
chicken
part,
just starts running around the backyard with no head on.
Now, Chris, let me ask you something. Does this at all dampen your enjoyment after 10 years with the puppy eating the head of the chicken? Does that cause you to rethink this? Does not.
It does not at all. It makes me rethink. I need to put something in between the 3-inch gap in the gate because my dog got her nose in between the gap and the chicken stuck her head out. So it was kind of one of those things where the chicken shouldn't have stuck her head out and the dog shouldn't have stuck his head in.
Chicken's fault. Now, before you go away, we had a debate briefly the other day when Marjorie brought this irrelevant topic up with chicken coops in your backyard. Some people who are real chicken coop types like you say you can tell the difference between an absolutely fresh egg and one you buy at the supermarket. Do you subscribe to that notion?
I do 100%. I never did until I had a chicken coop of my own because I grew up in Medford in the city. And I always thought people with chicken coops were crazy until I moved up to North Reading and got my own. And now all my neighbors, we barter chicken eggs for honey, for vegetables, and all sorts of stuff up here.
Chris, since it's your first call, can you promise us next time your puppy bites the head of a chicken off, call us again? Can you do that again?
I definitely will do that.
Thank you, Chris.
I will do that.
Excellent first call.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you believe this happened right before
and
the call?
that's true. The chicken kept running around. That's really weird. Sanford Behavior says the same thing. He says we have the best of both worlds. Family member who has a chicken coop, about 24 chickens. We get the benefits of having fresh eggs. Yes,
I can
there's
deal with
a
that.
difference. Without having our own coop, family member does not want money for the eggs, so we purchase large bags of chicken
I'd be
feed.
fine if you decided to raise chickens in your
I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon. But listen to this.
What's that?
This is from our staff. When hens hide their eggs from you, it's called brooding.
It is?
It means the hen wants the eggs to become her babies and isn't willing to give them up to grubby human hands.
That's sort of
So
sad,
there you go. So
actually.
that's why she put them underneath the shrub, or she
Shrub.
sits on top of them and does not let the human owner get close to the eggs.
You know what they can do? They can also hide the egg under the detached chicken head of the.
Oh, God.
Thank you. So this is the answer, again, our crack staff, from freedomrangehatchery.com, signs of a sick chicken. Hiding from other members of the flock and humans. What? Okay. Not laying as many eggs. Not moving. That's okay. Pale combs or wattles. I don't know what either of those
Wattles
are.
are the things under their necks.
Oh, okay. Unusual droppings, weakness or not eating. Well, actually, this doesn't make sense. Not eating or drinking normally. Okay, so that's the answer for those who are looking for an answer.
We should point out here that if you own and operate your own at-home chicken coop, you run the risk of chickens rising up against you, revolting, as they did in the 2000 animated movie.
Oh, Chicken Run.
Chicken Run. Here's a little sound from Chicken Run.
What have we done? This is it, everyone. We're escaping. Oh, no? Now. But Ginger, she's not ready. We need to listen. We'll either die free chickens or die trying. Are those the only choices? Let's do it.
By the way, those are chickens who were speaking in that
They are,
particular scene.
and they don't like being in the coop.
Apparently not. Now, can I say one more thing? For those who are thinking of doing this, we should have said this. It's a town-by-town, city-by-city deal. Some jurisdictions allow you to have a chicken coop in the backyard. Some don't. So if you're into this for whatever reason, You got to check with your town hall or city hall or whatever it is.
Charlotte and Pepperell, thanks for calling.
Hello, Charlotte.
Hey there.
Hi.
So, two things. You've heard the term pecking order.
Of course.
Yes.
And when I had chickens back in my high holy hippie days, back in the 1970s,
Jesus, yeah.
we had about 6 chickens, and one of them was unwell, apparently, and the rest of them pecked it to death.
Oh.
It was so traumatic. But that's not why I called.
Oh.
I called because there was a neighbor who had a rooster among his chickens, and the rooster every morning between 2 and 5 would start crowing, not cock-a-doodle-doo, but "Arr! Arr! Arr!
Uh-huh. Yeah, we heard that. So, yeah.
That was very good,
got it?
Charlotte.
So how did you deal with that?
You got it.
How did you deal with that?
I've got earplugs."
That's good. Charlotte, the audience would like you to do that one more time, if you don't mind.
One
Go ahead.
more time?
Yeah.
Yeah, one more.
All right.
Go ahead. Very good. Okay. Your family's really proud. They're listening to the show. They are really, really happy with you. Thank you, Charlotte. That was excellent. Appreciate it. Thanks
John
for the
from
call.
Medford says he grew up with a farmer and he used to hypnotize chickens. Wow. He's
Wow.
text back and explain exactly how you did that.
Oh, what does your son do for a living? He hypnotizes chickens. Oh, you must be so
He's
proud.
out in the backyard.
Did I tell you, you know this, my first job, this is true, when I was a single-digit child in Germantown outside Philadelphia, well, it's part of Philadelphia, I think. I worked at old Doc Flynn's pigeon farm. I cleaned pigeon
You did
coops.
tell me that, yeah.
And that was the first time, I mean, it is disgusting, but it is true. It's first, he would kill a pigeon by twisting his head off. And then they walk around sometime for minutes and minutes and minutes.
Isn't that weird?
It is so weird.
I don't think we could do that if someone twisted our heads
Let's
off.
not try.
No.
Okay, let's go to Beaver.
Beaver in Forge Village.
Hi.
Hi guys, how's everything going?
Never better, thank you. How are you?
I've had chickens for about 20 years.
Oh.
Anything you want to know about them, I can tell you.
Yeah.
But I'd like to give a little bit of input.
Please.
Sure.
If you have a problem with rats, you're not paying close enough attention to how much they eat. Because if you feed them properly, you won't have any excess laying around.
Oh.
But if you want to avoid the rats altogether, get ducks. White ducks are prolific layers. The eggs are the same. And they eat mostly vegetation. So you can go to Market Basket's old produce rack, get some vegetables, chop it up, and give that to them. The rats aren't interested in any of that.
How is a duck egg compared to a chicken egg?
They taste the same. And anybody is telling you that the fresh eggs taste different, they don't. They taste the same.
They do?
It's an eye appeal thing, and it's the way it cooks.
How does it cook?
The albumin tends to run out quicker on a store-bought egg because it's old.
So, Beaver, why did you skipped an important part of this. Why did you decide however many years ago, 20 years ago, that you wanted chickens in your backyard there?
I just wanted them to go with my dogs and other things, you know.
Oh, so that's good. No, I'm not.
And the dogs
you're
don't
into
go
it.
after the chickens?
No. If you train the dogs right, they won't go after them. That poor guy, he had a puppy, so
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a horrible story.
It's an age thing. You can train the dog not to go after them. You train your chickens too. You can let them out into your yard, and if when it starts to get dark out, if you train them properly to come to chicky when you shake the food can, and they'll go flying right into your coop, and you close the door behind them.
Now, before you go, Beaver, you did a very good hey, chick, chick, chick. Can you do what that prior caller did in terms of the imitation of the clucking chicken? Can you do that?
Oh, well, I can do a clucking chicken or a rooster. Which one do you want?
Which would you prefer, Marjorie?
How about a rooster?
Oh, how about a rooster? Go ahead, Beaver. That is really, really good.
That was good.
How about a chicken while you're at it, Beaver? You're so good. Go ahead. Boy, you are talented.
Wow.
That is really... Beaver,
Wow.
call us anytime with those animals. impersonations. Thank you.
I got a text from someone asking about Brian McGrory's book about his how a rooster made me a family man. You're right, Dorothy and Tossfield. You should get it. It's a great book.
It is great.
It kind of reminds me of the Marley book years ago. That was a movie 10 or 15 years ago. Remember Marley? It was the Golden Retriever or something. It was with Owen Wilson. It was really good. I was always surprised they didn't make this into a movie. It's a rom-com.
Brian's book.
It's about Brian met the love of his life, who is a vet.
Yeah.
And it's a great story about the rooster and the dog and the vet and everything else.
How a Rooster Made Me a Family Man. It's not contemporary. Wrote it a bunch of years ago, but it's great. You should read it. It's
Melissa from the South Shore. What do you think, Melissa?
Hello, Melissa.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
The reason we got our chickens initially was to keep the tick control around the yard, and it did.
Wait, chickens eat ticks?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
They'll
that.
eat ticks.
That's a big deal, actually. Go ahead. Keep going.
And we have dogs, and they were constantly in the spring coming in with, 10 ticks sometimes at a time.
Oh.
And so that was why we initially got the chickens, and they do keep them under control.
And how happy are you that you have chickens, other than the tick issue?
We love them.
Why is that? Why is that?
Because they have a great deal of personality, one from the other.
Now, when Cy says that, I totally believe it. But you really can tell the difference between the chickens?
Oh, yeah. We have one chicken that we figured she was very bright because when she came into the house, she would go throughout the entire house and then hop up the stairs and go up the stairs and check out the different areas, go into the dog's toys and throw toys out.
That's great.
Box.
That is great.
That is that is great.
Melissa, thanks.
And
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, no.
You did great. That was a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing it with us, Melissa. Thank you for the call.
On the other hand, Sally's talking about a rooster attacking her friend and was panicked and tried to run out of the coop, and she whacked her head in the frame of the door and knocked herself out. And Peter from Hancock says he grew up in a hobby farm with chickens. The eggs were great, but my siblings and I never went into the coop to collect eggs without a wiffle ball bat to protect ourselves. The hens were very aggressive mini dinosaurs that wanted nothing more than to attack us. They're hen house invaders.
What's a hobby, whatever you just said? What? Hobby something?
A hobby? I don't know. I guess it's a farm full of hobbies in the backyard or something. I don't know what that is. Did you read the one from Jamie there?
No.
I was honestly considering getting a few chickens for the backyard until this segment. So far, it's been rat attacks, expensive feed, brooding birds, coyotes, cannibal hens, clucking roosters, heads cut off with blood everywhere for what? A few eggs?
I'm with you.
No, thanks.
Well, except people aren't. I don't think anybody called and everybody's been who called because of the egg production.
They're enamored of the chickens.
They're enamored of the chickens.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's why Cy wrote the book.
Which is sort of nice.
What's Cy's book?
How a Chicken Made Me a Family Man.
Thank you very much. I should have written that down, obviously. What a Chicken Knows. And it was a great book. And she talked about how she could differentiate among all the chickens. They look different, and the chickens could differentiate among human beings.
So before we end this segment and have Jared join us talk about his chicken relationship, what do you think about the fact that woman sat through a 2-hour program with Cy Montgomery? We were the MCs of the program, asking all the questions. And she has no idea that we were there.
Especially when she can differentiate among the chickens herself,
That's a very good point.
So she could notice that. And, I can see they might miss me, but Jim, you're really big.
I'm rather large.
It would be hard to miss you at 6'5"
we don't take it personally.
there.
Okay, does he raise chickens in his backyard or not, Jared Bowen?
Are you kidding?
Exactly. Not a chance.
Are you kidding? No.
Not in this lifetime. Is that correct, Jared Bowen?
You are so wrong, both of you.
Oh, come on.
No, I grew up with chickens in my backyard.
Oh, you're a farm guy. That's right.
Yeah.
And
chickens, geese, had the whole thing. I don't agree with a lot of what was said. I don't think they're that lovable and cuddly.
Yeah.
I don't think they're that different. We had one chicken who laid green eggs. We had one chicken that came from Logan Airport, so we named, actually, I think it was a rooster, Logan. I can't remember.
That's
really
cute.
remember
Wait a minute.
now. But you know the worst thing about chickens?
No.
What?
They eat chickens. So after Thanksgiving dinner, you put the leftovers out in the pen and they eat their own.
Oh, that is grotesque.
It's disgusting. And if you break an egg, they'll eat that too.
Wait a minute. Green eggs, you mean the yolks are green or the outside?
No, just the shell.
The shell.
Yeah, it doesn't end well for your gastrointestinal system if you're eating a green yolk.
Oh, okay.
By the way, that unnamed person who we both know, who gave me a dozen eggs from her Dedham, whatever the hell it is, backyard coop, they were pale blue. They were gorgeous. They were
The shells were pale blue?
Shell, yeah. They taste exactly like regular eggs, but whatever. Okay, what are you doing on the show, Chicken
Jared,
Man?
we had an unknown thing with
Well,
Jared.
he grew up on a farm.
He
I
was
forgot
a
about
farmer
that. Sort of.
in his youth.
Whatever. Okay.
Did you go out with your big boots on and clean the coop?
What are you...
I did, in my pitchfork every day.
See that?
Green acres is the
His
life for
chaps,
me.
like he wore on the show that
Farm
day.
living is the life for me.
Okay.
Land spreading out so far and wide, Jim.
Okay, fine. Thank you. What are you doing on your show there?
We're going to be talking about The Seasons, a new Baroque opera. We're talking to countertenor Anthony Roth Costanzo and playwright Sarah Rule about this world premiere happening, which is very, very exciting. Yeah, one of the most produced playwrights.
Yeah, she's great.
Then the Associates of the Boston Public Library just had the 100-year book debate. The books on trial this year were The Great Gatsby, The Trial, and Mrs. Dalloway. So we'll tell you who prevailed as
that's exciting.
the
What do you
best
mean
book.
on trial?
Well, there are 3 defenders who step up and say that it's the most extraordinary book from 100 years ago that still stands the test of time.
Wow, it's so funny. Those 2 books are always at the top of all these great lists. Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse, Virginia Woolf. Those are really great.
Yeah.
Well, so is The Great Gatsby.
I know 1925 was a great year. And then we'll Wednesday Addams from the Addams Family will be here in studio by way of Melody Munitz.
Wow.
Yeah, so this should be fun.
That is fun. Jared, nice to see you. Say hi to the chickens.
Can you see Jared? I can see Jared in the boots and the pitchfork out there wrestling,
believe me, I can.
wrestling with those mean, nasty chickens.
Raccoons, that was the worst.
Yeah.
One time I locked a raccoon in the chicken house, and I heard all these screams, and I ran out there.
really
They raccoons didn't get them. It was amazing.
It's called
One
sadism.
raccoon.
Okay, we got to go. Thank you for your contribution to the show.
You're welcome.
That was great.
That was a wonderful
No, it was
contribution.
good. The show's over. Let's go. Let's go. I mean, really.
All right. Thank you very
cares?
much for listening to another edition of Boston Public
What a
Radio. Jim can't get over the
raccoon
fact that the woman didn't recognize him over there in Somerville.
still
That's
can't get
the
over
real
it.
problem here.
We were
Keep up with
sitting
this
on the stage on each side of Cy.
Keep up with this 24/7. And all your brilliant questions, Jim.
They were good.
She didn't
My
recognize that
questions
they were
were pretty
brilliant
good,
questions, know
yeah.
who you were, what you said. That's
Exactly.
really annoying.
Who is that person?
You better call her back up and give her a
No,
piece of
we
your
barred her
mind.
from the show.
Anyway,
actually.
tomorrow we're going to be back at the Boston Public Library with a doubleheader. Maura Healy's going to be with us at 11. The MBTA General Manager Philip Eng at 1 o'clock, taking our questions and yours. And then Arts editor Jared Bone, we just talked to him, and national security expert Juliet Kine. We want to thank our crew: Zoe Matthews, Aidan Collin, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Thames and Vital, our engineer John the Claw Parker, Bill Piacitelli, Jenny Bologna, the BPL staff, Maddie Gard, Juan Jose Cadena, who got me a sandwich. Thank you, Juan. Thanks for hosting Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lennox Hotel. I'm Marjorie Egan.
Jim Browdy.
Thanks for tuning
Bye.
in. See you later.
What's trending?
Pianist Maurizio Pollini playing Beethoven's first piano concerto with the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra and Kurt Sanderling conducting.
Support for WCRB comes from you and Lex.